Sorry about that. My mouse got stuck. Sorry. Shut up. Okay. Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm a few minutes late, but you know what? Course late too. Oh, okay. There's no one here yet. So, while I'm waiting for people to show up, I'm just going to sit here and do. Oh, no, now court's starting. Okay. All right. Trying to.
Court is now open. You may be seated. Judge, we'd like to adjourn.
Well, I understand counsel wants to see me, but can it wait? Can we get started with the testimony? It's already 9:15.
We can with regard to 3 of the 4.
One brief second here. I'm going to pause it. So for those of you who watch on the replay or who may just be coming in, this is the Karen Reed murder trial. It is day, I don't even know, day 16. Today they'll be continuing with McCade's or Jennifer McCade's testimony, as well as I believe, is it Carrie Roberts is next? Or her friend Jen something, I forget. Anyway, it's coming up today though. For judging from how yesterday was and how yesterday ended, today might be the shit. So I'm gonna let her get back to it right now.
4 issues, but with regard to one of them that applies to this witness's testimony.
All right, so I'll hear from Mr. Jackson about that since it's this witness. Why don't we come over here and do it while we bring the jurors in, okay?
I'm gonna be getting ready too as we do this, so don't mind me. They have it muted. I don't have it muted, so that's not me. Did you guys watch it yesterday? The defense putting it out there like, maybe she called John O'Keefe's phone so many times because they were trying to locate the phone. Because they knew it wasn't on him. Maybe he was, I didn't think about it. Maybe he was hiding there trying to find him. I don't know. I'm completely speculating off of nothing, so don't take anything I say with any amount of seriousness because I rarely am. And I hardly ever know what I'm talking about. That's not true. In matters of law and shit like that, I never know what I'm talking about. But I do think after almost 30 years of bartending, I got a little bit of a read on people. For the most part, maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's a Dunning-Kruger kind of thing. The less you know, the more you think you know. Could be. Hi, Autistic Shell. Oh, yo, by all means, go back for a nap. This is going to be a boring stream, really. Just going to be sitting here watching the court shit. That's it while I get ready. And I want to try doing my nails again because they all fell off. So I'm just using the poly gel, though. I'm not using, like, nail tips or anything like that because they're long enough. I don't need them longer. So that's probably why they keep falling off. As long as they don't fall off at work, I'm okay. That would suck. Imagine getting a drink with a nail sticking out of it. I don't know. I want to look at. And if anyone's watching me and you see me doing my makeup and you have pointers or you're in disbelief over something I'm doing incorrectly, you by all means feel free to give me advice, but I may or may not take it. I don't claim to know what I'm doing. I'm pretty sure I don't know what I'm doing, but it all comes together at the end for me to where I'm satisfied. Therefore, I'm happy. That's kind of what it's all about, isn't it? So, but I'm always open to new ideas. I can't drop.
You are unmuted.
Yea. All persons have any business before the Honorable Beverly Cannoni, Justice of the Norfolk Superior Court, and for the County of Norfolk.
draw near, give your attendance, and shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Can't see
Now open. You may be seated.
2117, the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. Can I have counsel identify themselves for the record?
Adam Lally for the Commonwealth. Good morning,
Good
Your
morning,
Honor.
Mr. Lally.
Good morning, Your Honor. Laura McLaughlin for the Commonwealth.
Ms. McLaughlin.
Good morning, Your Honor. Alan Jackson on behalf of Ms. Reed.
Good morning, Mr. Jackson.
Good morning, Your Honor. Elizabeth Little, also on behalf of Ms. Reed.
Good morning, Ms. Little.
Good morning, Your Honor. David Genetti for Karen Reed.
Good morning, Mr. Yannetti. Good morning, Ms. Reed. Good morning, jurors. Awesome. The county was kind enough to come in last night and make sure that the air conditioning was working. They were here late. They did a really terrific job, so I think everybody should be comfortable today. I do have to ask you those same 3 questions. Were you all able to follow the instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we left yesterday?
No.
Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Were you also able to refrain from doing
She asked that question to the jury every day. You know, were you able to refrain from, hearing or listening anything about this case outside of court? She like that, and they all, the whole jury always says, yes, it answers, correctly. Like, think about it though. If you were on that jury, do you think you would refrain yourself? I mean, I don't know. It's an important enough task that I think that most people would be able to rise to the occasion and not do it. But seriously, think about it. Like, how hard would that be? Like, it would be very hard, I think.
any independent research or investigation into this case?
And they're not even. Why are they never even?
Yes or nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since we left yesterday? No. Everyone said no or shook their head. All right, may we have Ms. Reed, Ms. McCabe, please.
Hi, Patty. Sharp. Hi, Lulubi. Good morning.
You shall answer the evidence you give the court and jury in the case and the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I did.
Try this again.
All right, Mr. Jackson, whenever you were ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. McCabe, as a matter of housekeeping, I want to show you a quick set of documents that you saw yesterday, but I just want to make sure that we're talking about the same thing with the court's permission. Same.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can you just take a look at that and tell me if that appears to be the same set of documents that we talked about yesterday?
Yes, I actually slept good and long last night. I got home from work by 10.
Yes.
Okay. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm not going to keep pausing for, personal questions about this. I got home at 10. I was passed out by like 11:30 and I woke up at 8 o'clock today. So I slept good last night.
I don't need to rush you.
I needed it.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would ask that this set of group chats that have been authenticated be moved, marked and moved to evidence.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
May I approach?
Yes. Exhibit 98 from the left. Does that cover more than what you covered yesterday?
The exact same document, I just failed to do it yesterday, my fault.
All right. So is there still more? I'm just curious if my form's different then.
Yours should be the exact same.
Why don't I take a look at the exhibit, please? Why don't you come to sidebar, please?
Uh-oh. I'm just going to say. Oh, damn it. Uh-huh. They're muted. It's not me. What's going on here, Jay? Anything new? Nope. Oh, yeah, since I'm a little bit behind, I can speed this up. Oh, no, here they
All
go.
right, so that will come into evidence, and jurors, sometimes I do have to repeat myself a bit, but this is, again, before you can consider any electronic communication in your deliberations, you must first find that it's more likely true than not that the person who authored or sent these messages was in fact the person identified as doing so. If you do not find that it's more likely true than not that the person who was identified as doing so was the person who authored or sent or transmitted the electronic communication, then you may not consider that electronic communication in your deliberations. So, all right, Mr. Jackson, go right ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. McCabe, you'll recall yesterday we talked about the 12 times in your grand jury transcript that you talked about statements that you attributed to my client. You remember that conversation?
Yes,
And in those dozen times, you never used the word or the words or the phrase, I hit him, correct?
correct.
And your explanation for that was, well, I
What?
wasn't asked that specific question, correct?
Correct.
What was
You
you?
were, in fact, on January 29th, let me rephrase that just a little bit. You did, in fact, on January 29th, seek to ask an officer to come back to 34 Fairview for the specific purpose of telling that officer something that you thought was important, correct?
Correct.
Which officer was that?
Michael Lank.
And about what time did you ask Officer Lank to join you back at 34 Fairview?
I'm not sure. I know it was in the AM. I'm just not sure what time exactly.
Somewhere around 9 a.m. Does that sound about right?
Possibly.
Okay, so this literally, we're talking about just a couple of hours after the incident in question.
Correct.
Okay. Sergeant Lank came with Sergeant Gallagher, I believe, correct?
Correct.
Came back to the location at 34 Fairview and gave you an opportunity to provide whatever information you deemed relevant at that time to impart to him, correct?
Correct.
And isn't it true that at that time, you didn't tell Sergeant Lank that my client said, I hit him? What you said was that my client said, I hope I didn't hit him, correct?
No.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Incident report.
Huh?
It's like the second to the last page. It's like,
It sounds like she's just been changing her story as this whole thing's gone along for
could you take a look at that
whatever reason.
report, just the face page, and tell me if that appears to be an incident report associated with this case? I know you didn't draft it, but you recognize that that's an incident report from the police, Canton Police specifically.
Yes.
Could you turn to the tab that's the little light blue tab, maybe 3 pages from the end of that report?
Yes.
I'd like you to read that paragraph to yourself, if you wouldn't mind, please. Do you have that in mind?
I do. Yes.
Okay, may I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. What you read just now appears to be a report of the incident in which Sergeant Lank came back to 34 Fairview to give you an opportunity to tell him whatever it was that you thought was important, correct?
Was that a full report or was that just an excerpt from it?
Well,
that paragraph?
That right
What's the
there
matter?
is a full report of that incident of Sergeant Lank going back to 34 Fairview. Would you agree?
Well, that's not a full report of what I said, but if that's his full report, it's his full report.
Okay. And in this report,
Mhm.
what he writes that you said to him,
Objection.
The objection sustained.
isn't it true that what you actually told Sergeant Lank when he returned is that while driving around with her and Roberts looking for the victim, Miss Reed said something to the effect of, quote, I hope I didn't hit him, end quote. Isn't that what you told him?
Yes, because she said that when we were driving around.
And then you went on to say
Mhm.
that, quote, she, Karen Reed, made these statements again at the scene when the victim was discovered, correct?
Correct.
And then you went on to say she, Karen Reed, I'm sorry, that you thought that Reed may have made these same statements in front of a police officer, but she was not sure, meaning you were not sure, correct?
I was not sure if she made what the police officers may have heard. That report is his recollection. My recollection is I told him that she said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. And I told him that he should ask the responders if they heard that, because it was a great possibility that they heard it as well.
But none of that, you'll agree, you just read the report, none of that is in his report.
That's a very brief report.
I didn't ask you if it was
No.
brief, I asked you if it was in it, correct?
Correct.
And that's a report of a conversation that he had at 34 Fairview with you for the specific purpose of memorializing what you told him, correct?
Correct.
And what you told him, according to Sergeant Lenk, is she said one phrase, I hope I didn't hit him, correct?
That's what's in the report.
All right.
Sorry, just looking in the chat here. I gotta let this dry and then I peel it off. But looking in chat. So if anyone's interested in watching the Daybell trial, Claire has been streaming it, so you should check that out. Shill, if you're still here, can you put a link to Claire's stream in the chat, please? Thank you. If I don't see it up there in a minute, then I'll go find it. Thank you.
And again, this was 2.5, 3 hours after the incident, not 2.5 years later, correct?
Correct.
Ms. McCabe, we talked yesterday about this unrecorded meeting that you had in front of Sergeant Lenk's home on January 30th. Do you remember that conversation?
I remember the conversation, yes.
Have you had any other home visits with any other police officers involved in this case?
I went to drop off. It was not a visit. It was myself with Kerry Roberts dropping her daughter off. There was no involvement of Mike Lank on this day.
Have you been to the home, the personal residence of any other police officer involved in this case? Ever?
Yes.
Tell me who?
Kevin Albert.
Who else?
I went to Elizabeth Proctor, the wife of Michael Proctor's house.
Who does Elizabeth Proctor live with?
Michael Proctor.
So you actually went to Michael Proctor's personal residence, didn't you?
I did,
Yes.
yes.
That was in September of
Why word it like that?
23. I went over.
2023.
Yes.
Why'd you go to Michael Proctor's house in September of 2023?
Yeah.
I met Elizabeth Proctor in approximately July or August of 2023. We are two mothers that are being viciously terrorized and harassed by social media. Things that were stated in this courtroom and allegations that were made have torn our lives upside down. We receive hate letters saying that they
I'm
hope
asking you
things.
why? I know you want to give a narrative.
She gets to answer this, Mr. Jackson. The door's open.
Your Honor, if she could answer the question why she went to the house as opposed to the narrative behind her motivation.
It sounds to me like she's explaining why she went to the house. The door was open, Mr. Jackson.
Go ahead.
We receive letters, we receive emails, we receive calls. People drive by our house. There was a rolling rally outside of my house where people just screamed at us. They take pictures of our children. They took a picture of my daughter and put semen on it and said property of some named blogger that I think the defense is very familiar with. So that is why myself and Elizabeth Proctor got together. Michael Proctor was not home. We are two mothers trying to get through the unthinkable together.
So you were upset about the public outrage concerning.
And I just want to say real quick, if any of that is happening, I'm sure, I no doubt that most, if not all of it, is in fact happening. That is absolutely disgusting and horrific. And fuck you, whoever's doing it. That's not helping anyone's cause. Least of all, your favorite blogger that you're mentioning in your art, if you will. It's not art. I'm being sarcastic there. But also, but on top of that, though, and this is no excuse or anything. There's no excuse for this, none whatsoever. I can't help but to wonder what kind of shit that Karen Reed has been getting as well. And they've had no problem going out in public and accusing her of shit, and knowing damn well that they have done all kinds of fucked up shit in this whole entire investigation. So I'm not saying what's good for one is good for the other. No, it's shit all around. But why not just acknowledge that it's shit all around? All right, I'm done.
Your family's involvement in the death of John O'Keefe.
I was outraged because I am a state witness that is being tortured because of lies.
Because of public outrage concerning your family's involvement in the death of a police officer, correct?
No, it's a social media witch hunt.
I see. So you decided that the best way for you to address that angst that you were feeling is to go to the lead investigator's home, personal home, in this case, correct?
I went to visit Elizabeth Proctor.
So
Michael
just-
Proctor was not home.
So just like
See, here's the thing. If any of that was true, and I'll give her the benefit of the doubt and say it's true, then you meet Elizabeth Proctor somewhere outside of her home, out of Elizabeth and Michael's home. You meet them elsewhere. She can come to your house, whatever. Okay. You don't continue to feed into this impression of impropriety, because that's what's fueling much of everyone's angst and anger and hate, is the fact that what's good for one is good for the other. It's the fact that those in the police department and those associated with them can do whatever the fuck they want, including and especially if it means fucking over an average citizen. That's the problem. So quit adding to that.
like when you went to when you went to Sergeant Lank's house and the only person you met with was his wife, when you went to Michael Proctor's house, your claim is the only person you met with was his wife.
I personally did not go to Mike Lanks. It was not Jen going to Michael Lanks. It was Kerry Roberts dropping her daughter off, and I happened to be in the car with her. Elizabeth Proctor, I met with because we couldn't take the torture any longer.
And you were later asked about this
No.
unrecorded visit at Trooper Proctor's home by Massachusetts State Police, correct?
Can you remind me?
Sure. Did you have a conversation with a trooper by the name
Do I
of
just start with the water bottle? Do I?
who interviewed you
Dude,
specifically
like out of my makeup kit.
about your contact with Michael Proctor?
Could I see the report to refresh my memory?
Do you not remember having a conversation with Trooper Tully?
I've had many conversations over the last 2 years.
Trooper Tully?
Over the last 2 years with a number of troopers.
Okay. Do you, all I'm asking you is, do you, and I've got a report that can refresh your recollection. I want to know, first of all, do you remember having a conversation
Listen,
about
Jeremy.
your relationship with Michael and Elizabeth Proctor with Trooper Tully?
I know I had a conversation with a trooper about it. I don't remember exactly which trooper.
Fair enough. May I approach?
Yes.
I'm going to show you this page.
See, if she were anyone but a cop's wife, I believe that she doesn't remember which trooper, but I'm pretty sure she knows exactly which trooper.
Thank you.
Take a look at the face page of that, read it to yourself. And then I'd ask you to turn to the tabbed page, which is paragraph 27.
Okay.
You have that in mind?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Does that refresh your recollection, Ms. McKay?
He said, may I approach your honor? And both the judge and Karen said yes. What the fuck?
That you had a conversation or an interview, formal interview with Trooper Tully about your relationship with Elizabeth and Michael Proctor.
Yes.
And you told, actually, let me back up for a second. Okay, was that somewhere in the vicinity of September, late September, early October, when you had that conversation?
Is there a date on it?
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
See,
There's a date stamp on the bottom. Take a look at that date stamp on the bottom and tell me if that refreshes your recollection of about
Yeah.
the time that that conversation would have taken place.
Well, the dates,
oh shit, what'd I do? Did I do that? Let's see here. What did I do? Why did the sound go away? Cat, go away. Not now, cat. Come on, go. Go. Sorry, I don't know what I did. I hit something on the keyboard and then the sound went away. I think it was me that made it go away anyways. Let me see here. It's not muted on my StreamYard. Okay. So let's try this again. Oh, wait a minute. Where are we at? Why am I in the beginning? Oh, that's what happened. I started it over again. My bad. It's picking up now. I hate my internet. Come on. All right, I'm just going to refresh it. Oh, wait a minute. Why is that? Why aren't I connected to Wi-Fi? It's weird. It's connected to my phone for some. You guys can see me and hear me, right? Oh my God, I swear to God, I'm going to kick your ass. Get out of here. I have the window open for you to go up in the sill. Go up in the windowsill. I might have lost internet. I don't know. What the fuck's going on? This is crazy. My internet's been going out like a lot the past day and a half. I've had to reset it like 3 times. And I had to do a hard reset once where I unplugged the cable cord and everything. Bullshit. And what the fuck are we paying all this like crazy amounts for Spectrum? There we go. I'm still streaming, right? Yeah. And I'm probably going to have to do this. I'm gonna have to re-add it, otherwise the sound might not come back. Yeah, the price is freaking ridiculous. Oh. And and as usual, it's the only really one you have to choose from in the area. I mean, they allow for competition where I live, but the primary provider pretty much controls all the infrastructure. So any new entity that comes in has to either work out a deal to lease the infrastructure from the already existing one here, or they have to build their own. Okay, there's that. Oh, I'm an idiot. I stream my own stream. I'm so stupid. There we go.
Thank you, Tony.
There we go. We're just gonna leave it where it's at. I'm not gonna go back.
May I inquire?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. McCabe, I don't have the records in front of me. Maybe they'll be found before the end of our conversation. But in the meantime, for expedition, do you remember a call on February 14th with Trooper Proctor lasting about 17 minutes?
I don't know.
Do you remember a call on February 17th lasting about 2 minutes?
I don't know.
Do you remember a call on February 28th lasting about 2 minutes?
I don't recall. Again, it's hard.
I expect that your answer is going to be, I don't recall, but I want to make a record if I could. So this is not a test of your memory at this point. I don't expect you to have it memorized. I just want to ask if maybe one of these stand out in your mind, or all of them. What about a second call on February 28th lasting about a minute?
Don't recall.
On March 1st, another call with Trooper Proctor lasting about a minute.
I do not recall.
Apparently a second call on March 1st lasting about 2 minutes and a few seconds.
I don't recall.
On March 11th, another call in the afternoon lasting about 12 minutes.
I don't recall.
And finally, a call toward the end of March, March 29th, lasting about 4 minutes.
Again, I don't recall.
Okay, understood that this is not a memory test, and I don't have the records.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
I apologize about that. Based on the conversation that we've just had, does that jog your memory that you had multiple calls in February and March with Trooper Proctor, as well as the calls we've gone over with the records in January?
To be honest, I had calls with many people. I was in a state of shock for months following this. So if you have the record, I can answer off of that. But besides that, just reading them to me does not jog my memory. I'm
But-
sorry.
That's okay. You wouldn't quarrel with the idea. I don't want to hold
coming
you
off
to
a little bit
number. You
nicer,
wouldn't
more
quarrel with the
approachable.
idea that you had multiple calls with Trooper Proctor in January, in February, in March, correct?
Well, the ones I've just saw on the record, yes, there were multiple calls there.
And of course, you met him in your home on January 29th, on January 29th.
Yes, I did.
And he came into your living room. You had a conversation with him.
In my dining room, yes.
I'm sorry, your dining room. And also Carrie Roberts was there
Carrie Roberts was not there.
on the 29th.
Carrie Roberts was not at my house on the 29th. No.
When was she at your house when she was interviewed?
I believe that was the Tuesday, whatever the date was.
Maybe first? That sound right? First or second?
Yeah, something. It was the Tuesday following,
Okay. And was that with Trooper Proctor or a different trooper?
a different trooper.
And
Damn it.
with Trooper Proctor on the 29th, when he was interviewing you in your dining room,
Mhm.
that was the day that Brian Albert was also there.
Correct.
And was Brian Albert also interviewed on that day?
I believe so.
So Trooper Proctor was in your house for, gosh, it had to have been an hour.
I'm not sure. After I interviewed, I went upstairs and then my children started waking up and I was tied upstairs for a while. I'm not sure when or how long he was there.
But your memory is clear that not only did you meet Trooper Proctor on that day, you had a full conversation with him. It was in your house. That was in your kitchen, in your dining room, and another witness was interviewed by Trooper Proctor in your home as well.
Correct.
Then you had multiple conversations with him in January on that day, the day after, and the day after that. You've seen those records, correct?
Yes, correct.
Then in either September or October, you were interviewed by Lieutenant Tully. That's the report that you've already seen.
Correct.
And in that interview, you were asked specifically whether or not you had a relationship with Trooper Proctor and when that relationship started, correct?
Correct.
And you said, quote, you had never met Elizabeth Proctor or Michael Proctor prior to September 2023, correct?
Did not say that.
So
She
here
just
again,
said that.
This is another example of a trooper completely getting it wrong. Is that right?
Objection.
Sustained, ask it differently.
In your view, did Lieutenant Tully
Didn't she just say a few minutes ago that she just met? Maybe it wasn't Trooper Proctor. Maybe she was talking about his wife, but she just met her in 2023.
get your statement wrong that you had never met Trooper Proctor before September of 2023?
Objection.
Is that true or is that wrong?
Lieutenant Tully knew I met Proctor prior to that because Proctor was the one who did the initial interview on January 29th.
Does it make you wonder why he wrote in his statement, quote,
Objection, Your
never
Honor.
met Elizabeth Proctor or Michael Proctor prior to September 2023.
So the objection sustained.
If you indicated you had never met Trooper Proctor
I don't know.
before September of 2023, that would be a false statement, correct?
Objection.
Well,
You can answer that, Ms.
Yeah.
McCabe.
I met Proctor January 29th. It's
False
everywhere.
statement. If you said it, would it have been false? That's all I'm asking.
Yes.
On January 29th, in the early morning hours, I'll take you all the way back to 1:30, 1:45 a.m. when you left 34 Fairview on the 29th. After you dropped off the girls, where did you and Matt McCabe go?
We came home.
After you got home, you indicated that you went upstairs, correct?
Correct.
After you went upstairs, you indicated that you got on the phone.
Correct.
On your cell phone, correct? After you got on your cell phone, you indicated that you started searching for stuff.
Correct.
So if there's GPS, that you've seen the forensic extraction or part of it, correct?
Which one are you referring
Your
to?
phone. The forensic extraction of your phone.
I saw what you showed me yesterday from Celebrate.
That's what I mean.
Okay.
From
I'm-
Celebrite, part of it.
I saw, yeah, the phone calls. Yes.
Okay. You're aware that that extraction shows that you got home after 2 a.m. or so. So that would be generally correct.
Correct.
The Celebrite extraction shows from your Apple Health data that you actually went up a set of stairs. That would be accurate, correct?
Accurate.
The Celebrite data shows that you actually logged into your phone, did a login, either Face ID or a passcode, opened up the phone. That would be accurate.
Correct.
The Celebrite data shows that you were engaging with an app called Safari to engage some Google searches, correct?
Yes.
That would be generally accurate as well, correct?
Yes.
So after you opened up Safari, you indicated that you Google searched something about Ozone basketball. Is that right?
Yes.
That was sometime after 2 a.m., right?
Yes.
What was so important about Ozone basketball at 2 a.m. that couldn't wait until the morning? Why did you search it then?
Well, first I was home. I was wide awake, and I had been texting about a basketball chat, and basketball was clearly on my mind. My daughter had been invited to join a team. I didn't know much about the team, so I just was like,
it's narrative like that. Basketball was clearly on my mind. Like, why do you?
Googling to see, because the woman who had given my daughter the offer had wanted an answer.
So you say that basketball was on your mind, correct?
Yes.
Was there anything else on your mind in that early morning hour time frame?
Don't believe so.
Ms. McCabe, if you wanted to know in general how long it takes for a human being to pass away because of exposure to extreme temperatures, right? If you wanted to know the answer to that, what would you Google search? What phrase would you use?
I'm not sure. All I recall is what the defendant asked me to Google in the morning.
If you wanted to know, I'm asking a different question.
Mhm.
If you personally wanted to know, how long does it take for a person to die of exposure
No,
due to extreme temperatures?
no.
What would you put in? What phrase would you use?
Objection.
Sustained.
Well, we don't have to guess at the phrase that you would use if you wanted to know something about dying of hypothermia, do we? Did you actually Google searched it?
Objection.
Sustained. Ask that differently, please.
Did you, in fact, use a phrase to Google search how long it takes for someone to die of extreme temperatures?
I did in the morning at the request of your client.
And what phrase did you use?
I'm not sure.
Really?
Correct. I was,
After 2.5 years of this, you don't know the phrase that you used?
Objection, Your Honor.
there's so many lies and
Okay,
misconceptions on
question.
social media.
No question.
Oh, I apologize.
Okay.
She
Are
seems
you
nice
telling
here
me that
today.
you don't remember what Google search you put in?
Karen was screaming. My hands were shaking. And she was saying, Google hypothermia. How long does it take to die in the cold?
And what phrase did you put in your phone? I'm just asking you to say it.
Why don't you show me it?
You literally don't remember?
That's
Again,
not a
she
good
was
one.
screaming, Google hypothermia. How long does it take to die in the cold?
How about,
And I picked up my phone and I started Googling.
and you literally, to this day, right now, under oath, you're saying you don't remember that phrase that you used.
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that
Do you remember it or do you not, Ms. McCabe? That's a simple question.
that morning, I don't remember specifically what I Googled, but I do know what you've put out to the social media.
How about this? Hoss long to die in cold. That sound familiar?
Yeah, it's been
Why
everywhere
does that sound so familiar?
because you've put it out in social media.
Well, I haven't put anything out in social media because I don't personally have.
Dude, I get the strong sense from this chick that like nothing is ever her fault. You know, anything she does wrong isn't really wrong because somebody else caused her to have that reaction. Nothing is ever her fault. So if you're gonna try and pinch it on her, you should know that you're gonna be the one accepting responsibility for her actions. You know, my opinion, whatever.
Have social media.
I'm sorry, Turtle Boy did.
So if the world happens to know it,
Mhm.
that's not on me, is it?
We should make a prediction. How many times do you think Turtle Boy's name is gonna be brought up in this trial? I'm gonna go with 62.
I guess not.
I guess not. Hoss long to die in cold is what you put in to the Google search, right?
If you say so.
Is there a reason that you don't want to admit to that?
Absolutely not.
It's
I
a simple question, right?
no reason.
So
No
say
reason.
it.
There is a
What
reason.
Google search did you use?
There's a reason you don't want to admit to that. Whether you did it nefariously or if you did it for the reasons in which she's stating. Either way, you know it's not a good look, so you don't want to admit to it. Why can't you just admit that?
Objection.
Sustain.
You were seeking at some point to Google how long to die in the cold, correct?
Correct.
And you made a mistake and mistakenly typed Hoss long to die in cold, correct?
You could show me it. I'd appreciate it.
What?
You later Google searched. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you.
While she looks at that, Mr. Jackson, can we bring our clerk back upstairs?
Of course, yes. I think that should be said.
Thank you very much. Can you text Jimmy and tell him?
Take a look at that report and tell me if that refreshes your recollection.
Yes, it does.
Does that appear to be an accurate page from a celebration?
This is what she's doing. Throughout everything, throughout all of this cross-examination, she refuses to admit to anything unless she can see proof that the defense side actually has the proof of what she said or did. It's like she's not going to admit to anything until she knows she has to.
Celebrate extraction from your phone.
It does.
Okay. May I have that back? I'm sorry, may I approach?
Yes.
May I have that back for a second? Yes. Did you see the actual search phrase? Does
Yes.
that now refresh your recollection?
Yes.
But I'd like to have this marked as next in order.
Is there an objection, Mr. Lally?
No, Your Honor.
May I?
Yes. Is that, Madam Court Reporter? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move to publish this, Your Honor.
Okay.
Does this appear to be the document that was just marked as Exhibit 99?
Yes.
I know it's a little bit small. It's, notice. You see this column,
Yes.
third column from the, actually it's the fourth column from the left. One, some dates, some data, and then a Google search, correct?
Correct.
What does that Google search say?
House long to die in cold.
Now, you indicate that you did that, you made that search at 6:23 a.m., correct?
Correct.
And then you indicated that you did it again thereafter at 6:24, correct?
Correct.
At 6:24, you misspelled the phrase and you spelled it as follows: how long TI die in CIKD, correct?
Correct.
Now you claim that those two searches were at 6:23 and 6:24 a.m. respectively, correct?
Objection.
Phrase it differently.
Sure. You've indicated under direct examination that these two searches were at 6:23 and 6:24 a.m., right?
I don't know if I gave exact times, but I said it was in the morning and Karen had asked me to do it.
And you, exactly, you claimed that you searched it because Karen was screaming at you and yelling at you, Googled hypothermia, and you Googled how long does it take for a person to die? I'm sorry, she said something like, how long does it take for a person to die of hypothermia? And you Google searched it at 6:23 and 6:24. Is that right?
Again, I'm not sure about the exact times. I just did it after Karen asked me to do it.
Would you quarrel with the idea that those were about 30 seconds apart?
Okay.
And you're aware, Ms. McCabe, that both spellings, both misspellings of that phrase result in the exact same search results, don't they?
I'm not aware of that. No.
I can, yeah, I can do that.
Googled them, ma'am. You looked on your phone and you Googled how long to die in cold and how long to die in CIKD. Both of those. You Googled them, right?
I did. Yes.
And they
I believe that they result in the same search results because Google kind of just takes it upon itself to try to interpret what it is you're asking for the reasons of misspellings and stuff like that. Happens to me all the time. Like all the time. Google kind of expects none of their users to really actually know how to search for shit. So Google's AI kind of makes up where you lack, in intelligence wise and using your systems. Because if you actually learn how to search for things, it's called Google Dorks, and you apply them, Google would then ask you to clarify and make sure that you're a human because they don't believe you. Swear to God.
result in the exact same search results, don't they?
I have no idea.
So my question to you is, why the two searches?
She was standing next to me screaming, shaking my hand. My hand was
Yeah, I can't buy into this, whatever he's trying to do here, because I do that all the time. Even though I know I spelled it incorrectly, I will either respell it correctly or Google will give you an option, did you mean? And I will click the did you mean, if that's what I meant. So I can see that happening.
was cold. I was trying to Google it. Obviously, maybe whatever came up first didn't make sense because I had some misspellings. So I did it again.
Yeah.
So Hoslong to
Believe
die
that.
of cold results in articles concerning dying of exposure, doesn't it?
We never got the chance to read it.
Well, you're the one, when you say we, who's we?
Karen and myself.
Well, you're the one holding the phone, Mr. Dave.
Correct.
So you're looking down at your phone and you see exactly
Yeah,
what comes
we-
up, right?
I don't remember exactly what came up.
Well, what came up was something about dying of hypothermia, didn't it?
That's what she asked.
So why do it again? Why do it again, Miss McCabe? You had the result. Why the second search?
I cannot answer that beyond telling you that my hands were frozen. She was shaking me and screaming at me.
And you see
See, it's Karen's fault.
the time, let me scroll up, please. According to that, the Celebrate data, you see this first search that says Hossalong to die in cold?
I do.
What's that time?
You've got the, it's right over at 2:27
AM or PM?
a.m.
Ms. McCabe,
You,
you made that search at 2:27 AM because you knew that John O'Keefe was outside on your sister's lawn dying in the cold, didn't you?
Absolutely not. I did not make that search at that time. No.
Realized the next morning, after John was discovered, after 6 AM, that you had an incriminating search on your phone, didn't you?
Absolutely not.
To cover your tracks, you searched it again in order to overwrite the original search at 2:27, correct?
Again, absolutely not.
But you were nervous and you screwed it up. So the first search you made at 6:23 was Hossalong to die in CIKD, wasn't it?
No.
When you see the search right there, correct?
I see the search, but I disagree with your narrative.
And what's the time frame of that search?
6:23.
And you agree that that time frame is accurate, right?
Again, it's what the report says.
And that comports with your memory of that morning, about 6:23 in the morning in 51 seconds.
Correct.
There's a second search, correct?
Correct.
And this one at 6:24 says Hossalong to die in cold.
never knew that.
6:24:16, correct?
Correct.
I'm sorry, 18. I was up that grade. And that comports with your memory as well.
I remember Googling it at the request of the defendant. Yes.
About 27 seconds apart, correct?
Yes.
But the reality is your first search didn't comport with the 2:27 AM search, did it? It was a different spelling, wasn't it?
I never searched a 2:27. That is not reality.
But the 6:24 search did exactly mirror the search that, according to this report, took place at 2:27, correct?
I'm sure Celebrate will be able to explain it to you. I can't.
And then of those three searches, one of them ended up deleted. Isn't that right?
I never deleted any search.
Take a look at the Celebrate report, top search, and the column marked deleted.
Oh, here we go. That's what I want.
What do you see?
I see a yes.
Ms. McCabe, the reason you deleted that 2:27 AM call is because you realized that if you were caught Googling how long it takes for a person to die in the cold 3.5 hours before John's body was found, that would incriminate you, wouldn't it?
Objection.
The objection sustained.
Did you delete that search because you knew that you would be implicated in John O'Keefe's death if that search
Okay.
was found on your phone?
Objection.
So I was curious about something because in the document he was showing, it gave in parentheses said UTC, -5, and I know UTC is like the universal standard kind of time that everyone like feeds off of. Like that's where you can subtract and add like your own country code or your own time zones from and figure out the time depending on daylight savings time, of course. So I knew UTC, and UTC is usually over like I think it's the International Dateline or something, isn't it? Right over the UK or something somewhere. So UTC -5 would bring us to East Coast time, because like England's 5 hours ahead of us. So, but it said UTC -5 in parentheses, and then it gave the time 2:27. So I was curious, is a standard to put that in parentheses and then give the time, the results of that UTC -5 next to it as 2:27 being the accurate time for the specific particular time zone? Or do they put that in parentheses and say, basically, you have to subtract from this time here that we're going to give you next? And it's the former. They provide the accurate time for your time zone. But they really should figure out a better way to convey that, I think, because that was a little bit confusing. But okay. But I mean, that just kind of lends credibility, though, I think, to the time in which these searches were stated said to have happened, to show to have happened, because they are showing you their work. They're showing you their work on how they got to that time.
Could you answer that, please?
I did not delete that search. I never made that search at 2:23. I never would have left John O'Keefe out in the cold to die because he was my friend that I loved.
But he's not your family, is he?
Family and friends.
Is he not
Objection.
Sustained.
You
loved
acknowledge
him.
that you made the search at 6:23, don't you?
In the morning, I did, yes.
You acknowledge that you made the search at 6:24.
Multiple times in the morning, yes.
Of the 3 searches that show up, that were all found on your phone, the one that you disavow is the one that took place at 2:27 a.m., which would implicate you and exonerate my client, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Can I ask it differently, Mr. Jackson?
It's true.
Of those 3 searches, there was only one marked deleted. Isn't that right?
Correct.
That was the one at 2:27 a.m.,
Yep.
correct?
I wouldn't even know how to go in and delete a
That's not what I
search.
asked you.
Bullshit.
The one according to the Celebrate report.
You can delete a phone call. You can delete a
is the one at
search.
2:27 a.m., correct?
Correct.
You'd agree that that's awfully convenient for you, isn't it?
Objection.
Sustained.
It looked like she almost wanted to smile there.
That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lally?
Thank you.
May I approach briefly?
Yes. Thank you.
She should have used DuckDuckGo.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Going back a little bit, you were asking questions about Life 360 application that you had on your phone. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, Sharpelli, yeah. I
And
don't
you're
know if I
familiar with
said
that
that.
app and
I think I
familiar
did. I don't know.
with, using that app to see where your children are at various times. Is that correct?
Yes.
And from your experience using that app, how accurate is it as far as location or time or anything in regard to it?
Pretty accurate, varying some of their locations and sometimes weather.
Have you ever had instances?
Well, this is
where you
weather.
were told someone was somewhere and they were not there?
Yes.
You were asked some questions about Ryan Nagel's truck, correct?
Yes.
And do you know,
No.
did you on January
Wow.
29th, 2022, did you know Ryan Nagel?
I did not.
Did you know what kind of vehicle he drove?
I did not.
Keep your voice up, Mr. Lally, please.
Do you know whether or not that was actually somebody else's truck?
I do not know.
Know whether or not on January 29th, 2022, Ryan Nagel had a friend named Ricky?
That's what.
I do now.
But on the 29th, did you?
No.
On the 29th, did you have any idea what kind of vehicle he drove?
No.
This person you didn't know.
Correct.
And when you looked outside as far as the truck was concerned, did you even see a truck?
I just saw lights, vehicle. I didn't focus much attention to what was over there.
So fair to say you weren't paying attention to a truck you didn't see, a person you didn't know, that you had never seen before, correct?
Sustained as to that form.
Now, you were asked some questions about text between Ryan Nagel and Julie Nagel, correct?
Yes.
And as far as when those texts were sent, you don't know, do you?
There you go, Kitty.
Can you clarify?
Sure. Do you know whether or not Ryan Nagel texted his sister Julie before he had even pulled onto Fairview Road?
They were texting at about his arrival.
Texting about his arrival, but do you know where Ryan Nagel was when he was texting Julie about his arrival?
I believe he was outside.
But you don't know. Is that fair to say?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you know whether or not Ryan Nagel was on Cedar Crest or somewhere else when he texted Julie that he was about to arrive or that he was there?
Objection.
Well, I'll allow it. Do you know that?
I don't know that, no.
As far as the defendant's motor vehicle and the truck that Mr. Nagel was in, did you see either of those vehicles arrive in front of Fairview?
Yes.
You saw them pull up?
No, actually, are you asking if I saw them pulling up or if I saw when they arrived? I did not see them pulling up.
So at some point after they arrived, your attention was drawn outside.
Yes.
And when we're talking about you going to the door and looking outside, how long a period are you looking at?
Not long.
So would you describe it as either a glance or more of a, were you staring intently at the vehicle out in front of the house?
Objection.
Sustained.
How would you describe the manner in which you were looking out at the SUV in front of the house?
I would go to the front door. I look out. I saw the vehicle. I believe I sent a text and I went and sat back down.
I don't think she has either, Lulu B.
Now,
Yeah.
any of those
No,
times,
it just cleared off a
you
spot
went
for
to the
you.
door, and
No.
do you know how many times you went to the door?
I don't know exactly.
No.
At least twice, is that correct?
At least, yes.
Now, in those at least twice that you, well, at least twice that you saw the vehicle and once that you saw that the vehicle was gone, correct?
Yeah, so I guess actually it was more than twice because I saw the vehicle move as well.
And when you say as far as you saw the vehicle move, did you see the vehicle physically move or it was in one place and then you came back later and it was in a different?
It was in one place, and then when I came back, it was further up.
Now, at any of those points in time that you took a glance out the storm door, did you see anybody outside of the vehicle?
No,
Did you see inside of the vehicle?
no,
Did you see anybody outside other than Julie Nagel on the front lawn, front walkway, or anything else?
no,
At any point in time while you were at 34 Fairview that night, did you see John O'Keefe?
no,
At any point in time when you texted John O'Keefe after you arrived at Fairview, did John O'Keefe respond?
no,
At any point in time after you arrived at Fairview, after you hung up from the 12:18 a.m. call in which you were describing where 34 Fairview was in reference to Bella's house, did you ever hear from John O'Keefe ever again?
no.
And during that about 20-minute or so period of time when Mr. O'Keefe or the defendant's SUV is in front of the house, you never heard anything from John O'Keefe, correct?
Correct.
And did that strike you as unusual as far as him not responding?
I thought it was strange, but then I thought that they just might have decided to go home or had gotten into a fight or Kaylee wanted him home.
She wants to be a
You're
scarf.
looking out through the storm door and you see the Lexus with its lights on, right?
Correct.
And from that area, the secondary area up by the flagpole and the fire hydrant, that's the same area where you found John O'Keefe the next morning, correct?
Correct.
And with reference to that area, is there any lights as far as street lights or anything that you're aware of in that area?
No, it's a dark area in the corner of the lot.
Now, at any point in time, were you looking or were you expecting to see John's body on the lawn?
Absolutely not.
And fair to say that when you're looking in the dark, in the snow, from the storm door out towards the vehicle, not the same conditions as if you're standing in a courtroom or sitting in a courtroom today, about 10 feet away from somebody during the daytime with lights on, correct?
Correct.
In fact, when you go back to Fairview the next morning, and again, who was the person who requested or directed to go to Fairview?
Karen.
And so when you go to Fairview along with the defendant and Ms. Roberts at the defendant's direction, sometime around 6 a.m., when was it that you first saw Mr. O'Keefe.
I wasn't the one to first see him. Karen was.
So she's banging on the door, asking it to be let out. She goes directly over to the box, correct?
Correct.
And neither you nor Ms. Roberts, well, you didn't see Mr. O'Keefe on the lawn until after she did that, correct?
Correct.
And that was after you had already sort of driven a little bit past where he was, correct?
Correct.
Now, with reference to, you get home from Fairview around 2 a.m. or somewhere in that time frame. You go up to bed and you do some searches on your phone, correct?
Correct.
And so there's a Safari tab or application on your phone. That's where you access Google.
Yes.
Is that typically where you would access Google?
Yes.
And you were looking at Ozone basketball. You're also looking at Hockomock. Is that right?
Sustained.
What, if anything else, were you looking at beyond the Ozone basketball you talked about?
We had an exciting game earlier in the night against a local town that has a very good basketball program. So I went on Hockomock Sports to look at the recap, and typically I'll do that to see how other teams did, etc.
And around that same time, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, within when you did that, as far as looking things up on Google, were you opening up new tabs within Safari as you were looking at different websites or different topics?
No.
And when you went to bed or you went to sleep that evening, at some point you turned off your phone, right?
Correct.
And did you X out that box, that Safari tab that you were doing those searches with regard to Ozone and Hockomock?
No, I used to always leave my tabs open and my kids would yell at me.
As far as having multiple tabs open, is that correct?
Drains my battery, etc. Yes.
So then, flash forward. to
Why-
sometime after
what?
6 a.m., you're on the side of the road and the defendant asks you to conduct.
How old are her kids? Like, what? Why are they even knowing what tab that she even has tabs open? Like, what's going on there? Like, I mean, so my younger two especially, but even my oldest son, they grew up in pretty much the age of cell phones. Like my youngest son had his first cell phone when, around 10, 11 years old. It didn't do much. It basically just made phone calls. But an internet-based cell phone, I'd say 14 maybe. And I can't recall a single time. And he's really into shit like, anything internet related and stuff. I mean, it's what he does for a living and whatnot. So I can't imagine, I can't recall any time he's ever had my phone and said, you have too many tabs open. Like, why are these kids going through her phone? That's, I don't know.
Or look up something with regard to hypothermia or how long to die in the cold, correct?
Correct.
When you open that up and you go into Google, did you open up a new tab or did you just sort of go into what you had already open in the Safari tab?
I went to what I already had opened.
And that's where you perform the search, is that right?
Excuse me?
That's where you perform the search that you were just being asked about?
Yes.
And you never made any search like that at 2:27 in the morning, correct?
I did not know.
Now,
Yeah, you did. My opinion.
again, you've been shown what's been called a Cellbrite extraction report, correct?
Yes.
Are you familiar with how many Cellbrite extraction reports were conducted in reference to your phone?
I think a couple. I'm actually not sure.
And prior to January 29th, 2022, had you ever seen a Cellbrite extraction report?
No,
As you sit here today, do you even really know what that is?
not really. No.
Do you know what a wall file is?
No.
Do you know what an SQLite database is?
No.
Do you know what a knowledge profile C database is?
No.
Do you know how information is stored and kept within your cell phone?
No.
Now, as far as, let me ask you this, you had 4 children and you were a mom, a homemaker, correct?
Correct.
At some point you did work, right?
Yes.
What did you do for work?
I was an elementary school teacher.
What grade did you teach?
5th.
One question and we'll see where this goes.
What grade did you teach?
5th.
And how long did you teach 5th grade?
Objection.
Yeah, I'm going to see Council at 7. Oh, feel free to stand up.
What does that matter? Just a dehydrator. I don't think so. Check chat here out. Yeah, they're on the sidebar right now. She's a non-kitchen teacher. No, she seemed more like a counselor who just doesn't want to be there anymore.
If I could take you back to 4:53 in the morning is when you get that first call from Kaylee Furbush. Is that correct?
Correct.
You answer that call and then the defendant is put on the line, correct?
Yes.
And so what is the first sort of iteration of the story that the defendant tells you happened the night before?
That they got into a fight. She left him at the waterfall and he never came home.
And at some point later, you confront her with that you saw the vehicle out front of the house, correct?
Correct.
And so then what is the defendant's story changed at that point?
That they went there and it changed multiple times. I'm not sure exactly. She said, oh, at one point, oh my God, I don't even remember going there. She was telling other people that he was dead, that a plow hit him. The story changed multiple times that morning.
Now,
Well, I mean,
on cross-examination,
she just found her man dead outside in the snow. Okay, outside where where the party was. I'm sure that all kinds of shit went through her mind. Like, did a plow hit him? Is that what killed him? You know, did a fucking bear attack him? Whatever. I mean, like, everything's gonna go through your mind. Like, what could have fucking happened?
you were played a voicemail.
No.
You know whose phone that voicemail was.
No.
They never said no.
Fair to say that you're on 911 in the background of that phone call, correct?
Correct.
So it wasn't your phone.
Correct.
And there's two other people beyond that, as far as Ms. Roberts and
No.
the defendant, correct?
Correct.
Was Kerry on the phone at all that you saw?
No.
And so with reference to the timing of that phone, you had called 911 and you were on the phone with 911 at the time that recording starts, right?
Correct.
So you had gotten out of the car, you had gone around and then seen where the defendant had run over to Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Objection.
As to the form, it's sustained.
What had you done before you placed that 911 call?
I got out of the car. I ran behind the car over to the body. I was in a state of shock for a couple of seconds. Kerry and I looked at each other and I said, I'm going to call 911.
And there was a period of time when you made the call before connected and you said you bounced around to different agencies, correct?
Yes.
Okay, here's my thinking. If I came upon the scene and, generically, sincerely, like she's claiming, and I would think we need to get him immediate assistance. What is more fucking immediate than banging on the fucking first responder's door of the yard in which he is laying in? Like, they would get there quicker than calling 911. I mean, don't get me wrong, still call 911, but I would be doing both. I would get inside the house, get them outside first to help start doing whatever, and then get on the phone with 911. Okay? Why was the first thought, the first concept to come to mind, why was it not seeking help from inside that home?
And this is after the defendant has hit the door and run from the vehicle over to Mr. O'Keefe's spot, right?
Yes.
So it's not your phone and it's not Ms. Roberts' phone. Fair inference is the defendant's phone, correct?
Correct.
And so this phone call had been made or started recording at some point before you had even gotten out of the car, made your way over to Mr. O'Keefe, been in a state of shock for a few seconds, called 911, connected to 911. So at some point, It had to have been made in the car, correct?
Objection.
Ask it differently.
Do you know when that voicemail or that recording that you heard, do you know when that call was placed?
I don't.
Now, at the time that you are making the 911 call, where is the defendant in relation to the vehicle?
She is over with Mr. O'Keefe.
Okay, so to answer your question there in the chat, wondering why they're trying to pin this down on Karen, he didn't simply just pass out. The prosecution claims he was struck by a car. The defense claims, nah, something more happened to that. And it does look like something more than just getting struck by a car. He looks like he got the shit beat out of him, possibly attacked by a dog. So that's why this is such, there's so like contention and so many accusations flying around. And it's just, well, that and the huge impropriety being conducted, the inappropriateness, the unprofessional behavior and conduct shown by those in the investigative agencies is just, it's amazing. So that's kind of why, I think. My opinion.
You mentioned that the part beyond the 911 call where you heard yourself talking, you're at the rear of Ms. Roberts' vehicle?
Yes.
And why are you at the rear of Ms. Roberts' vehicle?
In the beginning, I'm at the rear gathering towels or blankets. And then a few times I go to the rear because I'm trying to speak with the 911 and Karen is screaming hysterically. And then Kerry starts screaming at her to calm down. It was quite chaotic. So I was moving away so that I could be clear with the operators.
Now,
Yeah.
at some point, you went into your sister's house at 34 Fairview, right?
Yes.
And why did you go?
Officer Lank asked me to go in and wake them up.
So you were asked to go in there by the police to wake them up, correct?
Sustain.
She doesn't even think about going in there until
At some
after the
point,
cops
you
arrive and
indicated
tell her
that
to.
you
Come on.
had Officer Lang to come back to the house, right?
Yes.
And how did you get his number again?
Julie Albert.
And as far as, were you aware whether or not Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, or any of the other people that were present had Officer Lang's number?
Objection.
Sustain.
Why did you ask Julie Albert and not Brian Albert or Nicole Albert?
Because I knew she was the only one that had his number.
You were asked some questions about when you were on scene, and you indicated in your testimony on direct that you heard the defendant say, "I hit him, I hit him, I hit him," correct?
Yes.
You also, early in your testimony, had indicated that earlier in the morning, the defendant had phrased that differently as far as, could I have hit him or did I, correct?
Objection.
Sustained as to the form.
You heard the defendant make a variety of statements over the course of the morning, correct?
Yes.
And more to my point, as far as you recall testifying at another hearing under oath in June of 2020, correct?
Yes.
And do you recall being asked some questions specifically about this topic?
Objection.
Allowed. Okay.
So Karen's car, there is a cracked, well, depending on who you talk to, there's a cracked or a taillight with cracks in it or a missing taillight on her car. But there's also video of her back that morning going out to look for John, backing out of the driveway and backing into John O'Keefe's vehicle in the driveway. So But then, yeah, that's the only damage. Only damage. How long did they there for? Look up.
Sidron?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Ms. McCabe, as I was asking before, in June of 2023, you testified in another proceeding, correct?
Correct.
And you were asked questions specifically about those statements that you heard the defendant say on the morning of January 20th, correct?
Correct.
And do you recall specifically what your testimony was in regard to that portion of your, in regard to those statements?
I don't recall specifics. I know what I know. I know what happened.
Can I approach you?
Yes.
I'm giving you 2 pages. Direct your attention to the bottom of the first page and then into the next page. If you could just review that to yourself and look up with it.
The page again, Mr. Lally?
You're on 816 and 817.
Thank you.
May I approach you?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe, is your memory refreshed as to what you said in that prior proceeding in regard to those statements?
Yes.
What did you say?
What did I say in that? I told them that Karen looked straight at me and said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. And I said that there was, I believe, an EMT that overheard as well.
Now, do you recall in that same prior proceeding being asked any questions sort of
See, and here's what,
times the defendants
Nah.
different iterations?
because the EMT that's claiming to have overheard is that McLaughlin chick, the one who kind of got busted for being, you know, way more closer of friends than she was willing to admit to on the stand with the Albert's daughter.
Of that same statement.
Objection.
Sustained as to form. No leading, Mr. Lally.
With respect to that that's testimony in that same prior proceeding, what, if anything else, were you asked about?
What, if anything?
Statements the defendant made to you that morning?
I was asked what were some of the statements that Miss Reed had made. And it was like, repeat, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? Could I have hit him? Did I hit him? I have a cracked taillight. And then I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
No,
And so with respect,
I thought that she testified, was it yesterday or the day before, that she was the one who pointed out the taillight to Karen and claimed that she did so and it was caught on video.
to questions and as far as did I hit him or could I have hit him, and the statement I hit him, those were at different times, correct?
Correct.
Now, you met with Trooper Proctor on January 29th, is that correct?
Correct.
Was that the first time that you had met him?
Correct.
And who, if anyone, was with him when you met him?
I believe it was Trooper Yuri.
And subsequent to that day, did you meet with other troopers in the state?
Yes.
And by other troopers, I mean not Trooper Proctor and not Trooper Yuri.
Yes.
And with respect to meeting with other troopers, was it at that point that they had talked to you about taking your phone?
Correct.
And they asked you for your phone, is that correct?
I had shared my Life 360 and my texts, and they asked if they could take a copy of my phone.
And did you agree to that?
I agreed to it. Yes.
And were you presented a form at all in regard to your agreeing to hand over your phone?
Yes.
And beyond what you had testified to earlier as far as things to do, were there any limitations that you put on what they could look at or take from your phone?
No limitations.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sorry. I'm trying not to be so loud.
I'm showing you a document again.
I'm a
just ask you to
klutz.
look at it, look up. Just in general, ma'am, do you recognize that?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
This was the consent form for my phone.
So that's the form you filled out with the troopers in regards to giving over your phone.
Correct.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'll move to seek to submit as the next exhibit.
Is there an objection, Mr. Jackson?
No objection.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Now, again, Ms. McCabe, initially following that the events of initially that morning around 6 a.m. or so, at some point you were seeking or you had actually asked the defendant for Kerry Roberts' phone number, correct?
Yes.
And why is it that you were looking for Kerry's number specifically?
Well, the driving conditions were terrible. She was driving to Braintree to pick up Mr. and Mrs. O'Keefe. And then they were heading to the hospital, and I was just looking to see how John was doing.
Now, you had mentioned at some point, did you speak to Ms. Roberts that morning in regard to updates as far as how John was doing?
Yes.
And you mentioned that later on, that day or the next day, that you had gone over to Mr. O'Keefe's house with Ms. Roberts, correct?
Yes.
And who was driving at the time that you went over to the O'Keefe's house with Ms. Roberts?
Kerry was driving.
And so when you left the O'Keefe's house, where was it that you went?
Kerry went to drop her daughter off at her friend's house, the daughter of Mike Lank.
And you were just in the front passenger seat of that vehicle, correct?
Yes.
You had mentioned as far as getting together with Ms. Roberts at the request of someone to talk about a timeline, correct?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury sort of how that came about or who was making that request?
Kerry called me and she told me that she had talked to Peggy, and Peggy had,
No, I'm going to allow it.
and Peggy had suggested to Kerry, you guys should write a timeline. You don't want to forget anything, when the time comes, meaning when the trial comes, you don't want to forget anything that happened.
Why are you thinking about this shit ahead of time? You don't even know what happened to him
Mrs.
yet.
O'Keefe,
John's mother.
John's mother, correct?
Wow. I'll buy
You
it.
were asked some questions about subsequent date as far as hearing bits and pieces or portions of Ms. Roberts' statement to troopers at your home, correct?
Correct.
Do you know whether or not that was the first time that Ms. Roberts had talked to troopers or officers or anyone from either the Canton Police or the State Police?
I believe on the 29th in the afternoon, troopers went to her house. So that would have been the first time.
So the time that she was at your home and speaking to troopers, that would have been at least the second time that she had spoken to troopers, correct?
Sustained.
Now, with reference to Ms. Roberts and her phone, was Ms. Roberts, the time that you handed your phone over to the troopers, was Ms. Roberts present there as well?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did you see Ms. Roberts do with respect to her phone and the troopers?
She turned her phone over as well and signed the consent.
During that time, you had indicated that you had heard a statement that you said was horrified you in some way. Is that correct?
From Miss Roberts?
Yes.
Correct.
And what was that? What was she talking about?
Objection.
The door has been opened, Mr. Jackson. That means you can answer.
So basically, Carrie is a talker, and once she started,
I think just focus on
Okay.
what she said.
okay, she said something like,
Even the judge is just like, quit your fucking narrative and just answer the question.
John really loved Amy, and in my eyes, Karen was just a babysitter with benefits.
And is that what made it memorable to you as far as what had transpired at that time?
Yes,
At any point in time, did you ever coordinate your statement or Ms. Roberts' statements with her prior to testifying at any hearing or any proceeding at any point in time?
no,
Let me ask you, when you came to the area of 34 Fairview Road around 6 a.m., and you saw Mr. O'Keefe, was he in the same clothes that you had seen him in earlier?
he had jeans and I believe the same shirt on. Yes,
And nothing additional as far as a jacket or anything like that that you saw?
not that I recall.
Now, again, as you were driving down Fairview Road, if the defendant did not bang on the door and essentially jump out of the car and make a beeline over to Mr. O'Keefe, would you have stopped the car?
No,
Recall when you were leaving 34 Fairview Road earlier, as far as sometime between 1:30 and 1:45, when Mr. McCabe is driving. Do you recall whether or not the roads were plowed or treated or anything that you saw at that time?
I know there was snow on them, but I can't recall specifics.
Now, as far as the defendant coming over your house shortly after 5 a.m., was that something that you were expecting at the time?
No,
And what was it prior to the defendant showing up and sort of screaming in front of your house? What was your sort of plan as far as based on the information that Ms. Reed had called?
my husband and I were going to go out and we were going to drive over to Tom Beatty's house to see if John was there.
Now, as far as the 911 call that you were making, that information that you were providing, what was that based on?
What I was seeing.
But as far as how Mr. O'Keefe had come to be there at 34 Fairview Road, when you're communicating any of that to the 911 operator or to officers on scene, was that from your observations when you were inside 34 Fairview after the waterfall or from some other source?
Well, it was from what Karen was saying as we were driving there.
So as far as him being dropped off or anything like that, that came from the defendant, correct?
Correct.
Now, as far as you had been asked and you had testified about going over to Trooper Proctor's house to meet with his wife, correct?
Correct.
And you testified about certain incidents of harassment that you had undergone, as well as Mrs. Proctor, is that correct?
Correct.
How long had that been going on at that point?
At that point, it started in April, and now I believe I went over there in September.
And what, if anything, was the frequency of the harassment? Was it sporadic, or how often were you experiencing?
Daily, sometimes hourly.
And in addition to what you've already testified,
Mhm.
what, if any, other incidents do you recall specifically involving either you or your children or your home?
People come by my house, they take video, they scream. They've gone to my child's sporting events. and called me names.
It's not-
They've written letters to my daughter's colleges and said that they shouldn't allow them to play. And then they've attached these horrific articles that have been complete lies about all of us. They send me Facebook messages. They call my phone, home phone and cell phone, all hours of the night. They tell me to kill myself. They tell me I'm a terrible mother. They harass my children. My daughter testified here the other day. We didn't even get out of the building, and people were, saying horrendous things, that she's a liar. Your mother should die. It's just, it's unimaginable.
Okay, here's my problem with this, okay? When she says the people are saying horrible, unimaginable things to her, like they call my daughter a liar. I don't find liar to be horrible or unimaginable thing to be called. And it's when I don't know, this is a pet peeve of mine that I have with anyone. When you start applying all of these like tragic, dire, extreme words to something so trivial, then I kind of can't help but to doubt a lot of other things you say, because you seem to be trying to give the impression or to try to invoke emotion more than you seem to care about just presenting the facts of it, letting them lie wherever they lie. That's my only issue. I don't doubt that there have been actually horrible, unimaginable things said. I don't doubt that. I just don't think liar is one of them.
Imaginable what my entire family is going through. I go to the beach, they take pictures, they post it, they threaten that there are eyes everywhere. I'll never be able to live a normal life again. I am a witness. That's all I am. I am not on trial. I am a witness. And these people are terrorizing me.
Sustained as to that part. I'll strike that part. Everything else is stand. Okay.
And so, your understanding that Mrs. Proctor had sustained similar issues as you had?
Correct.
Now, again, Trooper Michael Proctor never met him prior to January 29, 2022, correct?
I have never met him prior. No.
And the time that you went over to meet with Elizabeth Proctor, was Trooper Michael Proctor home at that time?
No, he was not home.
And had you ever been over to his house prior to that or any time subsequent to that?
No, never.
Now, you did have some conversations with Trooper Proctor following this day and around let me ask you this. You testified a bit about a rolling route. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can you describe to the jury sort of what that was or what occurred on that day?
So that day in July, a group got together under one blogger, and they all met and they decided to go to different houses. So Michael Proctor had been made aware of what was happening. So he had reached out to tell me, what was going to be happening and how they had set up some cameras. It was a Saturday. I had just come home from vacation with my children and my husband. Mrs. O'Keefe picked up my two younger children and brought them out with her so they wouldn't be home for this. And my two older children and my husband were in the house while about, 50 to 75 people came to my house. They screamed, they yelled, "There's a murderer." They just caused an absolute ruckus outside.
And prior to that, did you have any
I don't agree with that. I don't.
Proctor or any other troopers from the state police about knowledge of that incident occurring prior to its occurrence?
Yes.
And as far as setting up sort of pole cameras around your house to memorialize whatever was going to happen?
Yes.
Now, you were asked some questions with regard to the Google search. Again, that was initiated after 6 a.m. Why again?
Because Miss Reed asked me to Google how long to die from hypothermia. She said, Google hypothermia, Google how long it takes to die in the cold. She was shaking me, screaming at me to do it.
And she's shaking you as you're typing, is that correct?
If you're
Correct.
And there's some misspellings.
If her hands were free to shake you, then weren't her hands free to Google it herself? Why would she ask you unless she was like trying to perform like life-saving measures or whatever to John? You know, but if her hands are free to shake you and she's sitting there standing there screaming at you, then wouldn't she just pick up her own phone and do it herself?
Correct.
Correct. I also have MS and I have
Well, I'll allow that.
I have MS and I have, issues with my hands. So I a lot of times Google and make errors, but the cold also makes my hand go completely numb. So I'm not surprised that that's how it would come out.
When you were in your.
It happens to me all the time.
Sometime
You
after
can't
2 a.m., fair to
give a
say
shit
the
for that.
defendant wasn't there shaking you when you were Google searching for ozone basketball or Hockomock?
Objection.
Sustained.
One moment, John.
Yes.
Yeah, Patty, I agree. Like,
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Jackson.
like, even if Karen was screaming out, like, how long does it take someone to die? Why? I'm not sure why that would come to mind unless he was like really, really cold to the touch. And oh my God, could he'd be too cold or whatever. But I don't think I would. The word hypothermia, I don't think would come to mind. Like this just seems awfully. This seems like an awfully calculated and chosen word. I'm sure it's an accurate word, an appropriate word, but when you're in a manic state or whatever, you can't think of words. Christ, I can't think of words when I'm just in a normal state.
Jackson?
Concerning statement, I hit him. You gave a statement on January 29th to Sergeant Light. Called him over to specifically give him a statement, correct?
Correct.
Gave a statement the next day, later that day, Trooper Proctor, correct?
Correct.
You were also met with, on that following Tuesday, with a trooper named Prince, correct?
Correct.
And then you testified in April of 2022, no fewer than 12 times about statements that you attributed to Ms. Reed, correct?
Correct.
And in not one of those instances, not one, is there a report that says you said, she said, I hit him, correct?
Correct. Although I told Mike Lank.
Oh, we already know that the officers all got it wrong.
Yeah, we already know all about that.
Sustained as to that. Next question, please, Mr. Jackson.
So you indicate that you were, the harassment that you just described, this terrible harassment that you just described, started in about April 2023, correct?
Correct.
That was around the time that there were public hearings concerning this Google search. Is that right?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
Is that right?
I'm not sure exactly when the Google search came out.
But you do know that you started suffering this harassment that you claimed is awful and terrible, et cetera, around April of 2023. Is that right?
I didn't claim it's awful. It is awful.
Okay, I'm sure it is awful, Ms. McCabe. I'm sure it's terrible.
It
I'm
is.
sure it sucks to be harassed.
It really does.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm sure it does.
that
Objection, Your Honor.
came up awfully
All right,
condescending.
so that's sustained, and I'll strike it. Go ahead and ask a question, Mr. Jackson.
You were upset by April of 2023 that there was public outrage about your family being involved in the death of John O'Keefe. That's what you were upset about, correct?
I was upset that we as witnesses were being harassed.
You were upset about public outrage concerning this case, correct?
Objection.
Sustained, that was answered.
They're both
Next question.
ways of wording that are
And
correct.
2 months later, in June of 2023, for the first time, you testified at another proceeding, and lo and behold, you attributed the words, I hit him, to my client, right?
Objection.
So ask that without the objectionable phrase.
2 months later, at another proceeding, in June of 2023, you attributed the statement, I hit him, to my client, for the first time under oath, correct?
Under oath, correct.
You indicated when you turned your phone in, the police were perfectly okay with you deleting communications with your children, correct?
Correct.
Including Ally, who's a material witness in this trial.
Objection.
So part of that is objectionable, and I'll sustain that. So
You're aware that your daughter Ally was a witness in this case.
At the time, I was not aware of that, no.
No, but you did know.
But she was
that
there.
ultimately
You should have known to
she was
expect
going
it.
to indicate that she drove Colin home, correct? You knew that at the time.
Objection.
that's sustained.
Did you know at the time?
I mean, I'm not saying that these women should be attributed to being like legal scholars by any means, but they're married to police officers and or investigators. They have to at least been told by their husbands, listen, you might not want to do that because X, Y, and Z. You know, or they probably had some sort of knowledge of it just all on their own from what they witnessed through the years. I don't know. I feel like as a police officer's wife, or especially as an investigator's wife, you kind of lose the right for like plausible deniability there, I think, or the expectation of plausible deniability, whatever.
Ally had driven Colin home, or she said she drove him home.
I had no idea she drove him home.
But you deleted all those communications with Ally, didn't you?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you delete all the communications that you had off your phone with Ally, your daughter?
Objection.
So this has already been answered, but go ahead, finish. Let's finish this loop. Did you delete them?
I deleted the conversations with my 4 daughters. At that time, Allie was not a witness.
All I asked you, here's my question. Did you or did you not delete the communications with Ally?
Objection.
That's been answered.
You said that there was this statement that horrified you, your words, horrified you, that Carrie Roberts made during her interview, that you were eavesdropping on, right?
I'm not sure if she made it during that interview. I'd have to look back to see when I said she told them everything in bold, because I know she had said it to me multiple times. So I'm not sure if it's when she said it in the interview or just in general. When she said, I told them everything. I told them, etc.
So when you
But
said in that
no,
group chat,
it's not what.
she's telling them everything.
Yeah.
That might not even be what you're talking about.
No, it was.
And you said that horrified you, correct?
I didn't know Carrie Roberts. So yes, her statement horrified me.
Horrified you.
Yes, that was horrifying.
And in that group chat,
There was
your
horror.
response
See what I mean?
to that horrifying statement was 3 words. I love it.
Was there a response prior to that?
You tell me, ma'am. I'm not the one under oath. You are.
Well, if you want to show me it again, I'd
Objection,
love
Your
to
Honor.
get.
Yesterday.
So
What's up with her fucking
do you
smile?
have it handy, Mr. Jackson?
I don't, Your Honor.
What the?
It's marked. Okay. Your Honor, it's been marked and entered. It was the packet this morning that I did. That's it. May I approach?
Sure.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
a look at those 2 pages. if you would.
Could you tell me what pages, please?
2169 and the second page, Ms. McCabe, if you would
Yeah,
mind.
he said 69.
What's the second number, Ms. McKay?
Second number, bottom right.
2170.
Billy Madison,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Or was it Happy Gilmore? No, Billy Madison. I'm a juvenile.
Have that, Emily?
Yes, I do.
May I, Your Honor? Yes. Thank you. During that conversation, when you said she's telling them everything, that came right on the heels of your husband saying, this girl could write a book, or this woman could write a book or something like that, correct?
Correct. She talks nonstop.
Right. And then you said 2 texts down, she's telling them everything.
Correct.
The text just before that was, I love it.
That was in response to my husband saying this girl could write a book.
What's the next thing that you wrote that group within a second of that?
She is telling them everything.
Right.
And she was talking shit about, okay. So in this, she was talking shit about Karen Reed and when she, whoever it was, Roberts, I think she's talking about. I can't remember. I can't keep all these people track. But the person talking with police, where Karen here is saying, or not Karen, Jen is saying, I love it. That person talking to police is talking all kinds of shit about Karen Reed. Therefore, Jen is saying she's loving this. She's loving that this is what's being said to the police by this woman. Like, why? Why are you loving that? Like, why are you here for that? You know? I mean, your friend just died. You keep pointing that out, how you just lost someone you loved. Your friend just died. But yet here you are. You're loving it. What the fuck?
Nowhere in that text chain did you say something along the lines of, oh my goodness, I'm so horrified. Did you?
Those were on phone conversations.
Nowhere in those texts that you just saw did you say the words or write the words, I'm so horrified. Did you?
No, because it was already spoken about.
You were asked on that morning, January 29th, 2022, as you drove to the location and ultimately to 34 Fairview. What ultimately happened? And your testimony was, as you approached, my client was searching frantically for John O'Keefe, correct?
I don't believe I said she was searching frantically for John O'Keefe.
Searching frantically,
She was screaming frantically in the back seat
frantically.
and texting in the back seat.
Was she just sitting there, curled up in the back seat, sucking her thumb, or was she searching out the window?
She was screaming
Right.
between Kerry and I. So I'm not really sure how she saw John over here when her head is up here screaming and then looking down and texting.
Was the whole point of that trip, Ms. McCabe, to search for John?
It was because she knew where he was.
The whole point of that trip was to look for him, correct?
She directed us to go to 34
No.
Fairview.
The whole point of the
Where
trip
she dropped him off
was
at?
to look for John,
At
correct?
34 Fairview, where Karen said to go.
And your testimony is that if it hadn't been for Karen jumping out of that truck, you would have stopped, correct?
Because I wouldn't have seen him. I
or no?
didn't know he was
Yes or
there.
no?
She did.
Okay, yes.
You
or
told
no?
him the
Is
address.
that your statement? If she hadn't gotten out of the car, you wouldn't have stopped.
I don't believe it was stated like that. I believe there was a question and I answered.
And the question was, would you have stopped? And your answer was what?
What was the direct question?
Oh my goodness, Ms. McCabe, it was 5 minutes ago.
Did he ask, did you
Objection.
see something? You like to change words. I just want to be certain.
So, Mr. Jackson, just keep it to questions, not comments.
You were asked just a second.
So
ago
ask her the
by
same
Mr.
question again.
Lally,
See how she answers
John
now.
Reed hadn't jumped out of the car, you wouldn't have stopped, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay.
All right, Ms. McCabe, we are finished. Jurors, I'm going to ask you to follow them out like you've done. We'll take a recess, and this one might be a little longer. I may need to see the words.
Jurors holding and leaving your notebooks on the chairs. All rise. Follow me, jury out.
All right, so. Oops, what did I do? We're all caught up there. So this is just a short recess, probably like 15, 20-minute break. I don't know. See, I've been watching the trial pretty much since it began. I think I missed like opening. Well, no, I end up catching up on opening statements even. So I watched almost the entirety of the trial, if not at the time it happened, then within days of each event. But before that, I hadn't followed the case too much. Like I knew about the case. I knew Turtle Boy was involved. You know, I knew that there was conspiracy claims, and I still had my doubts about a lot of the conspiracy claims because any which way there's no getting around the fact that the more people you have involved in a conspiracy, the less likely it is to remain a secret. That's just the way it works. That is human nature. We spill shit. We like to spill the tea, you know. And we're not talking about like trained professionals here who are trained to be spies or be secretive or keep things compartmentalized or anything. No, we're talking, you know, not to put us down, but soccer moms, you know, and I fit into that category. If not anymore, I did, you know. So, though I do think there was something else that occurred, I'm just not quite sure what. So.
You are muted.
All right, thank you.
What's kind of crooked? Should do it over again. I'm not gonna. Okay. What is in this contraption? My friend Jen gave me this, and it's got all these tools and shit in it, like little scissors, and it's pink. So cool. And it's sharp. But not sharp enough. Damn it. So, but to elaborate more on what I was saying, like, I don't know what happened. Like, my mind's been going back and forth throughout all kinds of things. Like, was John O'Keefe fooling around with one of their wives, you know? So I don't know. Did he walk in on something? Are people in the department like on the take or something, and something was discovered upon him walking into the house or some shit, or I don't know, or so there's some other activity going on between officers, you know, that is not illegal, but people seem to want to frown upon, and he discovered that. Like, there's so many things that go through my mind, but I mean, I don't think that this is premeditated, whatever it is that occurred. I don't think that the whole night they all like plotted and planned for something to happen. I think that if something did happen, it was due to circumstances that occurred immediately before that. whatever that may be, I don't know. But I don't think she's, I honestly, I kind of thought that she was probably going to be guilty, but like I said, I hadn't followed much about it. I didn't know about any of the shit that I learned since the trial began. But I thought, yeah, cops do shady shit. Sure, I have no doubt that there's some fucked up things that they did throughout this investigation. They're cops, but chances are she more than likely did it. That was my original opinion. But now it's possible so that she did it, but I don't think she did. I really just don't think she did. Like, it's possible in the sense that anything's possible, in my opinion, but it's definitely not probable anymore. So yeah, I think something else happened. And I think that maybe all of these people testifying, all this shit, like, I don't even think that if there is some sort of conspiracy where there's an agreement amongst, let's just say for the sake of argument, 2 people know about it and help orchestrate this cover up. I think that it's very possible that there's only like 1 or 2 people who are involved in such a thing, and everyone else is either buyed into the story that they told and they believe it wholeheartedly, or they just know better than to question shit. That's my opinion. Who those are that are clued in on what actually happened, I don't know. I do think it's possible Albert and Higgins could be 2 of those people. I think Jen McCabe possibly, but beyond that, I don't know. I don't know. And this is just my opinion. I'm based this on nothing other than my opinion and my takeaway from people's words and actions. And I'm no expert at all in any way, shape, or form in such a field. My only claim to credibility as far as that goes is that I tended bar for almost 30 years, but that doesn't really mean much. They're not drunk, so it's hard for me to decipher what they're doing, I guess. But yeah, that's about it. So don't take anything I say seriously. I'm just having fun here, but trying to pass some time while they're quiet here, and I don't know what else to do. Yeah, I see this what's been more amazing to me than anything, okay, is how quickly and how easily, not easily, but yeah, kind of easily, it has been for so many people to be on the side of police officers and sure that Karen would be at fault here, to do either a complete 180 or even just partially. Like they're willing to concede that Karen probably didn't do it, but they're not willing to buy into somebody else having done it yet. You know what I mean? But normally this shit doesn't happen this quick and easy. Like, even the people who are biased and want to give the police every credibility that they can imagine, they're having a hard time doing that because of how badly they fucked up this entire investigation. And I say fucked up loosely because I think that it was more likely deliberate, not like an honest, negligent mistake. So, but that, again, my opinion. But while they're on break, I'm gonna go get myself something to drink. I'm gonna go pee real quick. So I'm gonna put on my be right back music, and I will be right back. So, all right, be back. I'll be right back. Oh no, I gotta put the banner on too. So wait, I gotta edit that because it's not a booze break. There we go. Okay, be right back.
Every time you close your eyes, dream of me. I wanna be a fantasy. Imagine the water falling all on me. I wanna be in your wet dreams, in your wet dreams. close your eyes, dream of me. I wanna be a fantasy. Imagine the water falling all on me. I wanna be in your wet dream, in your wet dream. Be in your wet dream. I wanna be in your wet dream. In your wet dream. I wanna. Anytime you close your eyes, dream of me. I wanna be a fantasy. Imagine the water falling all on me. I wanna be in your wet dream, in your wet dream. Be in your wet dream. I wanna be in your wet dream. In your wet dream. I wanna.
It does come back automatically. I wondered about that. One more second. I'm not gonna play music though, just one more second. Actually, no, we can do this, huh? It's been a while. It's been a real long time since I played the StreamYard background music. Huh? What do we want? I want to hear Feeding the Ducks. Okay. All right, I'm back for now. And still there. Back over to chat. All right. Where's my okay. I can't wait to find out. I don't believe Karen did this at all. Yeah, I get that. I do. I get it. And really, what was the motive? I mean, because what struck me as very odd from the beginning is that they're not charged. They didn't try charging her with like manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter, or something, or even voluntary manslaughter. You know, they went straight to murder too. Well, what was her freaking motive? You know, I mean, and then the prosecution's witnesses and shit, you know, in the beginning, they're basically giving testimony to just how awesome they were together, you know, how much Karen cared about, you know, the kids, and like the only thing they ever really thought about was Karen, like, you know, like buying the kids too much shit, you know, and then just they didn't really fight, you know, they had a good relationship, you know. John's introducing her to his friends because, you know, she's got things in common, like MS with the friends or whatever. I don't see how they jumped right to this had to have been Karen. You know, I don't get it. Other than just the fact that she dropped him off there, that her car was in the proximity at some point in time. You know, like, you know, but correlation doesn't equal causation, you know? So I just feel like it seems like from the very beginning, this was narrated to frame, to just make it look like this had to have been Karen. And I wonder why that is, because I get that they want to see someone pay or whatever for their friend or for their partner in blue. But do you want the wrong person to pay? I mean, I would think that because this was a fellow police officer, they want to find out who fucking did this. Even if it was one of their own. Not saying it was, but even then. But it's like it's not the truth that they really want to know. It's they want whatever story out there they deem best. I mean, I don't know. But I wonder what was the motive, though, for anyone else to have done this to John? Like, what other motive could there have been? And the only things that come to mind are, you know, money or sex. You know, so was he screwing around with someone's wife, or were people in the apartment on the take and John, you know, found out about it or walked in on something, or, you know? I don't know. Steffi's not happy waiting for the trip. What trip? What trip? I know you have plans to, was it go to Chile or Texas or something? I think, wasn't it both? I think it was mostly Texas, though. Is that the trip you are speaking of? When do you go? Why can't I cut this? This was coming off. This is pissing me off. Be better scissors. Where are my gooder scissors? My gooder scissors, I just said. Where are my good ones? My gooder ones. Idiot. There we go. Got it. Because my gooder scissors. I found my gooder scissors. All right. I'm sorry, Steffi's not happy. Hi, Steffi. Hi. Is that why she wasn't happy? Because I didn't say hi to her. I don't blame her. I'd be unhappy with me too. We're leaving Friday night to Texas, and we'll stay in Fargo and Wichita, Kansas. You're going to be in Wichita? Aw, I was just there. It blows. I stayed in a nice hotel though in Wichita, and it was very cost effective. They had a pool and a hot tub. My advice to you though, in whatever hotel you stay at in Wichita, because they asked me this and my dumbass wasn't thinking. They said, you know, do you prefer to be closer to the ground or the sky? You know, and I'm like, oh, I like being up high. I want to see the view. This, yeah, but it's Kansas. It's very windy in Kansas. It was like listening to like a freight train going by continuously all night long. That's what sleeping was like. So I don't recommend staying up high. The view's not really that great either. So Wichita, I noticed something like about the towns and shit that the few towns and shit I seen like throughout Kansas is that where here in New York, we tend to build our cities more vertically. They tend to build theirs more horizontally. And I'm thinking it's because they don't have quite all the valleys and the plateaus and the mountains and shit that like upstate New York has. Because I mean, I grew up basically at the base of the Adirondacks, just about. And anywhere you look in any direction, you see hills, plateaus, mountains, whatever. Kansas, you don't. Well, maybe a little bit in southern Kansas. And I think toward where I was saying you were starting to see a little bit of it. But flying into Wichita, it's just flat. So they can build their cities more horizontally. Did anyone watch opening statements? Yes, I did. I don't quite remember much of the prosecution's opening statements, but I remember the defense's opening statements, including the part where they said that Michael Proctor, the trooper investigating John O'Keefe's death, was found to have been talking to his friends, like high school buddy friends or whatever, through text about how he's going through Karen's phone without a search warrant. He's just going through it. And, oh no, first he said that he hopes Karen offs herself. And then how he was going through her phone, but he was looking for nudes of Karen Read, and he was disappointed that he had not yet found any. So there's that. I remember that. I mean, I'm thinking though that the prosecutor or the defense has some sort of proof showing that, because otherwise, why would they claim that in their opening statements? Because that's something that's going to stick in a jury's mind throughout the entirety of the trial. They're going to be waiting and looking for that fucking proof that moment. And if they don't see it, it's going to be like a big what the fuck thing. So I live in the prairies, and we stayed there last year. Wind is crazy here too. Yesterday, tornado outbreak was from Minnesota to Texas. Holy shit! Yeah, all right. I'm kind of pissed about this. Okay, so like, for those of you who don't know, I had court business in Kansas, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. But the first date I had to go to Kansas was in February. So I looked up tornadoes, in Kansas in February, and like January and February are the 2 months of the year that they see like 0 tornadoes. So I'm like, what the fuck? I'm never going to get to see a tornado. Well, so we go to February, and then come to find out we have to go back again. And so the date's set for May. So I look up May tornadoes, Kansas. That's their peak freaking month. That's when they see the most tornadoes. They're most likely to see the most tornadoes. So I'm like, tits. Yeah, I'm going to get to see some tornadoes. So I fly in there, and I'm starting to get a little worried, because like flying in there, like the weather's like really shot for like the week prior, like I'm thinking my plane could very well fly through these weather systems. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Well, it didn't happen, because there were tornadoes warnings, watches, you name it, right up until about 4 hours before I got there. And I was there for 3 nights, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 nights and 5 days. Okay. And the entire time I was there, not even a concern, not even a care, not even a hint of any inclement weather, let alone when they produce as a tornado. But the second I leave, the shit comes back. So there you go, Kansas. If you want to avoid tornadoes, just bring me to your fucking state, because then they won't come. I'm kidding, obviously. But that's true, though. That's exactly what happened with the weather. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? And I didn't want to see like a big tornado. I didn't want to see any property get damaged. I just wanted to see a little tornado, like off in the distance, where no one's around it. There's no structures around it. So I could just see the tornado, and no one is out any money or life or whatever. And Kansas couldn't even give me that. Like, it's fucked up. I would really feel cheated about that. I mean, it'd be one thing if like the bad weather was there, but just one didn't happen. Okay, fine. I could, whatever, accept it. But it's like the earth saying, fuck you, Aaron. You're not even going to get the hope of one. Fuck you. That's exactly what it was like. So. It's crazy, the tornado outbreak from Minnesota to Texas. Like that's covering a lot of land, and I just stabbed myself in my finger. Damn it. Yay, another reason why I get to wear a finger condom at work. I swear, when I went to Kansas, I basically had the week off from work. Like all my little superficial cuts or my bigger cuts or whatever, all healed on my hand. It was nice, and then I've been back to work for, a week or a little more or whatever. And it's like, they're all there again. Not the same ones, new ones, because, I'm always counting myself. But the one I had though, where I literally stabbed myself in the finger, that one healed up finally. Like it went in there deep too, but it was a little knife, so it wasn't a wide cut. It's like almost like an ice pick kind of thing, but a little wider than an ice pick. But it was funny, if you were watching me, you would have thought that I meant to do that. Because it's just, I was having, those safety seals on like the purees and stuff. And this one, normally the brand we have, it peels off really easy, but this one wasn't doing that. So I was so mad. We're so busy. I grabbed a knife and I was holding it. I went to stab it and I missed it. Just went right in my finger. I'm like, fucking kidding me? I wonder if I was not wearing my glasses. Maybe that's why. Going on my first cruise in June. Yay. Awesome. Where are you going, Patty? I'd never been on a cruise. My daughter asked me, but I said no at first. That's crazy. I mean, I don't know. How old is your daughter? This shit spilled over on my cuticle. It's easier if I just try and get it off like this rather than use the sander, because the sander's loud and I want to have that playing. Oh, you were scared? Okay, yeah, I get that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do this one over again, damn it. I don't blame you there. You hear all kinds of like bad shit about cruises, like the mysterious deaths or murders or whatever that happen on cruises, and like the human trafficking shit. And I don't know. I get scared too. I would. Don't ask me. 36. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. I get you there. I see my daughter. She's 20. So I'm still at that, or I'm at that point in life with her where if she asks me to do something, I'm going to drop everything I'm doing and I'm going to say yes, because that just doesn't happen that much anymore, because she's still young. She's still, going down into the world on her own and shit. But yeah, by the time they're 36 or whatever, it's, they have their own lives, but they still value, they learn to value time with mom too. It's not like you're not making the adjustment of them being near you all the time to wanting to be away from you all the time. And that's what 20 is to me. So, and yeah, I get it. Your parents go all the time? Oh, Bahamas. Oh, that's so awesome. That is awesome. I would like to go. I honestly, I would have loved to have done that world cruise thing. That would have been like an ultimate dream come true. And I don't mean because of the drama or whatever that's unfolded. I mean just to be on the cruise. I'll tell you what I want to save up for though, and I just talked to my kids about it yesterday, is because I have a 28-year-old. He and I want to go on a trip this fall where we ride our bikes along the Erie Canal trail, for not the entirety of it, just for a section of it, for like a week or so. That sounds awesome. I think we're going to do that. But there's another trip I want to do, and I asked, hopefully he can come to this one too. But my little ones, I say little, my younger ones, I've been talking with about, because they're 20 and 21, is Amtrak does these like packages where you can just go across the country on their trains, and you get like a sleeper car, and because to me, like a vacation isn't just about the destination. It's about the trip there. It's about the trip, so I like to incorporate anything I do like that to the trip being a thing, the logistics of it. But I would love to do that because you go through the Rockies and everything. You know, you go all across the country, and they have these lookout cars and everything, so you can just get a really good view on things. And they stop in some major cities for a few hours. But I want to take that with the destination in mind of California, Northern California, so I can also see the sequoias and redwoods. And then take the train home, because why not? But that'd be like, you know, a really long vacation, but so what? They can swing it. My oldest is 25 as of the 14th of May, and youngest is 22. I want them to be babies. Oh my God, yep. Yep. I would give anything for my kids to be under 5 years old again. And not just for a day. I'd like to do it all over again. I hear you. They're coming back. Oh, let me turn that fan on.
All right, so jurors, I waited until the last witness left the stand and until you all had your morning break to give you one other instruction. And this one, all the instructions are important, but this one's important, so I want you to focus on it. Now, you heard from the last witness, and you may hear from other witnesses who described what Ms. McCabe called harassment and public demonstration. I believe she referred to a rolling rally. I permitted that testimony for a very limited purpose. That testimony was not offered, nor may you consider it as evidence that Ms. Reed has bad character or propensity to commit crime. In fact, there's no evidence before you that the defendant is responsible for that conduct that was described by Ms. McCabe. The evidence is relevant only insofar as it goes to the witnesses or to explain the witness's state of mind. So Ms. McCabe's state of mind. And that is to the extent it explains Ms. McCabe's conduct or statements or actions at any particular time. And ultimately, the testimony may be used by you only as it goes to the witness's credibility. Okay? Thank you very much. So, Mr. Lally, your next witness, please.
Yes, Your Honor. The Commonwealth to call Ms. Carrie Roberts to the stand.
Okay.
Now, is Carrie Roberts the family friend that drove John's parents to the hospital? I believe that's who she is. I don't think anyone's winning yet, but I think that the prosecution is just realizing what a waste of time this has been for them more so. 17 grandchildren, one grand. Aw,
All right,
I don't have any.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name?
Carrie Roberts, Roberts.
And where do you live, ma'am?
Canton, Mass.
How long have you
No,
lived?
Cat.
10 years.
And who, if anyone, do you live in Canton?
My husband, my 2 children.
And your 2 children, how old are they? And boy, girl?
My son is 12, my daughter's 14.
And do you work, ma'am?
I do.
What do you do for work?
I'm an executive assistant.
How long have you been doing
17 years.
that? And your husband, Kurt, does he work as well?
Yes.
What does he do?
He's a heavy equipment operator.
And how long has he been doing that?
Maybe 20 plus years.
Now, if I could turn your attention to the evening of January 28th, 2022 into the morning of the 29th. Do you recall those days? And do you recall what days of the week they were?
Say it again.
Do you recall what days of the week they were?
Friday,
So the 28th.
Friday the 28th,
into
Saturday the 29th.
Now, on the evening of the 28th, do you recall what you were doing that evening?
I was bowling with my daughter and her friends and one of the mothers.
And do you recall where that was?
Westgate Lanes in Brockton.
And about what time was it that you got home from that?
Probably about 8:30ish because there was a storm coming, so we wanted to be home. I didn't want to be out late.
And when you got home, you and your daughter, is that correct?
Say that one more time.
You and your daughter came home around 8:30 or so?
Yes.
Who, if anyone else from your house, was home when you got.
I think my husband was home. He was going out. I think I passed him and he was heading out to meet his friends. My son was not home.
And who were the friends that he was going out to meet?
John O'Keefe and Michael Camerano.
So, Ms. Roberts, I'd like to start with just Mr. Camerano. How do you know?
He's been childhood friends with my husband.
And do you know where your husband was going to meet Mr. Camerano and Mr. O'Keefe?
Miss McCarthy's. It's a bar in Canton.
Sort of in the center of town, is that right?
Yes.
And Mr. O'Keefe, how do you know?
I've known him since high school,
And where did you go to high school?
Braintree High School.
And how is it that you came to know Mr. O'Keefe? How would you describe your relationship with Mr. O'Keefe?
He was one of my closest friends.
In addition to Don O'Keefe, through growing up and going to Braintree High, were you familiar with any other members of the O'Keefe family?
Yes, Kristen, his sister, was a senior when I was a freshman. John was a year older than me, and Paul was 2 years younger than me. So at some point, I was in school with all of them.
And after high school, at some point, did you come to know any of the members of the O'Keefe family while you were living in Canton?
Yes, my son and John's nephew went to an in-home daycare together. So I went to go pick up my son at one point, and Kristen was there, and we kind of figured out that we lived in the same neighborhood that we were going to be moving into. And then Kristen got sick.
And during that time, sort of when you first reconnected with Kristen, about how old was your son and her son?
My son was 18 months. Patrick he's almost a year older.
And your son and Patrick Furbush, did they end up going to the same school in Canton?
Yes, they went to home daycare. They went to preschool, pre-K. And by the time they got to elementary school, they got separated because they were troublemakers.
But did they go to the same school
Yes.
all throughout?
Yes.
And what, if any, other activities did your son do along with Kristen's son, Pat?
Well, Patrick wanted to try hockey. So they did hockey together, and then he didn't like that. And they played baseball together since they were T-ball, like 4 or 5.
Now, you mentioned that Kristen O'Keefe or Kristen Furbush at that point, at some point after you met her, she got sick. Is that right?
Correct.
Eventually, she passed away. Is that right?
Correct.
After she passed away, her husband also passed away.
Correct.
And at some point after that, what, if any, role did John O'Keefe have with reference to?
Well, when Kristen passed away, I was in touch with John, just seeing if they needed help with the kids, getting them to and from wherever, because I was down the street. Kristen passed away, and then he said, I might move in. Steve's got to figure out finances, but I might move into your neighborhood. And I said, oh, okay. And then when Steve died, John did move in, and he took over raising the kids.
And fair to say that you were, with reference to your son being friends with his nephew Patrick,
That's what I put in.
you were
Okay.
able to see him fairly often, and by him I mean John O'Keefe.
Oh, yes, daily.
All right, I'm just going to read this real quick. So this is a very, very true comment, in my opinion. If Karen had not had the money and her family help with her defense, this lady might have ended up under the jail for the rest of her life. I definitely believe that she's innocent. Yeah, I'm definitely leaning way more toward the idea that she's not guilty. You are absolutely correct, in my opinion. Had she not had the money or the support or the means in which to afford such a defense, she wouldn't have stood a chance. She would have, and I mean, to really, if you could pull even more things out of this, I think. Imagine if she were not white, but John O'Keefe is exactly who John O'Keefe is or was. Imagine if Karen, though, was not a white person, a white woman, you know? It's crazy, but it's fucked up, you know? My number one fan, by the way.
And what, if any, At some point, did John and his niece and nephew move from down the street from your house?
Yes, they moved across town. So I live on the Milton side. He moved over sort of near the Stoughton side.
About how far a drive is that sort of from your house to where?
I almost want to leave that.
It was on Meadowtown, correct?
Maybe I will.
Yes, it depends because Canton's terrible for traffic. Maybe 7 minutes, maybe 8, depending. And if it's in the evening, it's longer.
And after Mr. O'Keefe and his niece and his nephew moved sort of across town, where did his nephew Patrick, where did he go to school at?
He remained at the same school that he was at with my son. So on Wednesdays, when John couldn't grab him in time because he'd be working in the city, Patrick would come home with me.
You familiar with what Mr. O'Keefe did for a living?
He was a Boston police officer, but at the time he was working in an office registering sex offenders.
Yeah, it's
You
great.
would help out as far as picking up his son. What, if any, assistance did you have with regard to his niece Kaylee as well?
Say that one more time.
What, if any, assistance did you have with regard to Mr. O'Keefe and his schedule with regard to his niece Kaylee as well?
I didn't take care of Kaylee as much. That was sort of, there was other women, Jen McCabe, one of them, she sort of really took hold of caring for Kaylee because her daughter was friends with Kaylee and I sort of got Patrick. So
Miss
John was
Lally, you
gonna-
have to keep your voice up. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Sorry.
And if you could keep your voice up too, okay?
My apologies. And then through the years that you knew Mr. O'Keefe when he lived in Canton and your time being friends with him, what, if any, conversations would you have with Mr. O'Keefe in regard to any sort of relationships or dating or anything like that?
Well, he dated a lot of people.
But
So
as
it
far as
depends.
Your conversations with what, if any, sort of role would you have, or what if any, knowledge did you have in reference to the people that he dated?
My husband, whenever he would go on a date with somebody, he would have my husband come meet them, sort of say like, what do you think? And he had a couple of girlfriends that were very nice.
Now, at some point, did you become aware of a person by the name of Karen?
Yes.
And when was it and how was it that you first came to know that person?
John called me and said, Karen and I are going to stop by because we had people over. And I said, who is Karen? Because I didn't know if he was going to bring someone from high school and surprise me with a random, I had never heard of her. And he said, you know who Karen is? The girl I'm dating. I said, nope, but okay. And then they came over that night.
And do you recall when about that was?
I think it was sometime in July.
In July what year?
What are we, 2020?
Sometime shortly after sort of the COVID pandemic.
Yes.
Why? Oh my God, right. Stop texting me. This is annoying.
Relationship.
This is very intrusive.
She was like another person that took care of the kids. She took care of Kaylee and Patrick a lot. So I would coordinate with her if Ryan and Patrick were going to go to the golfing range or if Ryan was going to go with them to the Red Sox game, that kind of thing. We weren't do lunch or hang out like girlfriends.
Was there any occasions where you had socialization or go out as couples or anything like that with Mr. O'Keefe?
No, they came over our house one time, and then we'd do baseball tournaments down the Cape, and we'd all get together. But the four of us never went out.
And just for clarity purposes, do you see Ms. Reed in the courtroom today?
Yep.
Identify her as to where she's seated or an article of clothing she's wearing.
Say that again.
Could you identify as to where she's seated or an article of clothing that she's wearing?
She is seated at that front table, and she has a black and white suit jacket.
Or just ask the record reflect identification by the witness.
Yes.
Now, coming back to that evening of the 28th, your husband went out to meet Mr. Camerano and Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Yes.
And do you know about what time it was that your husband Kurt arrived home that night?
Maybe around 10:30.
And after you arrived home, what, if anything, specifically do you recall the two of you doing or anything before going off to bed?
I remember sitting on the couch and the front door is right there and it was open and it started to snow. It had just started to come down probably about midnight, but it was coming down fast. So you knew it was little snowflakes usually mean a big snowstorm. And I said, well, it's starting. So we went to bed because we knew we weren't going out anywhere.
I know, right, Patty? I mean, what are they thinking? How dare they? We're watching the Karen Reed trial. Don't fucking text us right now. Like, I'm moving all my shit to Walgreens now. Like, I'm so mad.
And as far as turning your attention to the next morning, at some point you awoke. Do you recall what it was that awoke you that morning on the 29th?
Karen called me at 5 o'clock in the morning.
And is that sort of a normal occurrence as far as Ms. Reed calling you and specifically calling you that early?
No.
And when you went to answer the phone, at some point, did you look at sort of like the screen to your phone?
I don't know. I just answered
Ask this in a different way. As far as at some point, did you realize or did you know whether or not that call that at some point you answered, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the call that you answered, do you know whether or not that was the first call Ms. Reed had placed you that morning or no?
It was the second call only from looking at my phone after because I said, oh, shoot, she called me. She just called and I didn't. She called twice.
And the phone call that you answered, about what time was that?
5 on the dot.
And if you know from looking at your phone, the phone call that you didn't wake up or didn't answer, do you know how long before that phone call was?
I think it was a minute or two before.
So 5 o'clock on the dot, you get a phone call, you answer it, and it's Ms. Reed, is that right?
Correct.
And that phone number, you had her sort of programmed into your phone as a contact, is that correct?
Yes.
And on prior occasions, had you called that number or gotten a call from that number on prior occasions?
Yes.
And when you got that call or made that call, who was the other person on the end that you received?
Say that again?
Maybe a pretty simple question as far as it goes, but just with reference to any prior phone calls that you either got or received with that number that you programmed in as Karen Reed. When you spoke to someone by calling or receiving a call from that contact, who was on the other end of the call?
Karen Reed.
Thanks. So you answered the phone sometime right around 5 a.m. and can you describe to the jury sort of what the content of that conversation was?
I answered the phone and she said, John's dead. Carrie. And then she hung up.
And
What?
as far as her end of the conversation, did you say anything or get a chance to say anything before she hung up?
No.
And when she
Wait,
speaking
this
to you,
doesn't
speaking
make
those
sense.
words to you over the phone, how loudly is she saying those words?
Very loud. She woke my husband who was sleeping.
By the time that the phone rings and you pick it up, your husband's
Man, they gotta have like the loudest phones in the world of everyone around them. And you're the person on the other end.
Now, what happened then?
Then I got out of bed and Kurt said, what was that? I said, I don't know. Something's happening. And I think I started getting dressed at that point because I don't know if I started getting dressed at that point or after she called back again. I tried to call her, I think a couple times back to be like, what is going on? Finally, she called me back again and she said, I'm afraid John might be dead. He might have gotten hit by a plow. He did not come home last night. I was not supposed to stay in Canton last night and he would never leave Kaylee alone. I think something happened.
And do you recall earlier in the day of the 28th having any communication with either Mr. O'Keefe or Ms. Reed?
I did with John. He texted me.
Do you recall generally what that was about?
My son got into a scuffle with some boy at school, and Patrick wasn't in school at the time. I think he went to a doctor's appointment, but Patrick got wind of it. So John was calling to see if my son was okay.
Now, turning back to, again, that morning of the 29th, you called Ms. Reed a couple times. She didn't answer. Is that correct?
Correct.
And at some point, she called you back?
Correct.
And about how long was it after that initial phone call that you had where she hung up how much time it elapsed between that call and the next?
I don't know, maybe 5 minutes.
And so when she calls back, she makes those statements to you that you just testified about, and upon her making those statements, what, if anything, was your response?
I said, then she said she checked Kaylee's phone to see if John had called. And I said, okay, where are you now? And she said, I'm driving. Can I come to your house? Will you drive my car? I don't remember anything from last night. We drank so much, I don't remember anything. And I said, you need to go home and be with Kaylee if she's there by herself. I'll go look for him or something of that nature. Because I said, you're going to get a DUI. If you were drinking all night last night and you don't remember anything, you shouldn't be driving.
All right, so next question, please.
I don't buy that for a
When
second.
you were talking to
Not
her
for a
on the
second.
phone, what, if any, observations
Nope.
did you make of sort of how she was speaking or
I mean, think of
She was very frantic.
she's just told that this dude that she's known her entire life, like probably loved like a brother or whatever, is missing. Could have been hit by a cloud, whatever. And your thinking is, well, you sound like you drank a lot last night. Go home. That shouldn't cross her. I'm sorry, I don't buy that.
And her voice was elevated. She was very frantic.
and the loudness that you were describing during the course of that first phone call, what, if any, observations did you make with respect to that in regard to the second?
Same. Throughout the rest of the day, it was the same.
So you indicate to her that she needs to go home, is that right?
Correct.
And what, if anything, did she say in response to that?
She said, I'm going to come to your house. Will you drive my car? And I said, okay.
And after that, what did you do from there?
I started getting dressed. I think that's when I was starting getting dressed. And my husband said, where are you going? I said, I don't know. Something happened. John didn't come home. Karen's worried. So I'm going to go help her. And he said, you're not going anywhere. It's a blizzard. And I said, yes, I am. And I went downstairs. I started the car, cleared it off, and I sat there waiting, and she didn't come. So I called.
During the time that you're waiting in the car, do you know about how long period it was that you were waiting in the car?
I would say at least 10 minutes of sitting in the car.
And to that point, as far as when you went outside to the car, what, if anything, did you observe about the weather, and what, if anything, did you do with your car?
Yeah, was it snowing?
Turning it on.
I cleaned the car off. I turned the car on. I got in it, and I thought to myself, well, she thinks he might have got hit by a plow or something. I'll see if there's any accidents. So I called the Canton non-emergency line, and I said, have there been any plow accidents? My friend's boyfriend didn't come home.
What?
And they said no, there were no.
My friend's boyfriend? I thought, that's a weird description. Wouldn't she say my friend? My friend's girlfriend. My friend's girlfriend says that my friend could have been hit by a plow. That's how I would talking about a male friend of mine, someone who I've known my entire life and whose girlfriend I just met. That's not my friend's boyfriend. That's my friend, and then that's my friend's girlfriend. That's a very weird thing. I don't.
Accident. So then I called Good Samaritan Hospital in Milton to see if anybody had been brought in a car accident. They said no. And then finally Karen called back.
Before we get to that, just in reference to, at any point in time, did you call Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes.
And when you called Mr. O'Keefe, were you able to speak to Mr. O'Keefe?
No.
Do you know how many times you called Mr. O'Keefe?
My husband called him, and I think I called him.
And when was that in relation to you going out to your car and clearing it?
That was when I was in the house. Karen actually said, can you try and call him?
And you did, and you didn't get an answer.
Correct.
And do you know whether or not your husband got an answer?
He did not.
So you go out to the car, you're waiting, and you make those phone call initially to Canton Police. Is that correct?
Yes.
And do you know who you spoke to at Canton Police?
I believe it was Officer Good.
Is that someone that you knew in any way prior to this date of January 29th?
We have mutual friends, but no, I'd never met him.
Now, you call the hospitals, and then at some point after you finish speaking to the hospitals, the defendant then calls you back, correct?
Yes.
And what, if anything, can you describe to the jury sort of what was the content of that conversation that third time?
She said, I said, where are you? I'm in the car. And she said, I'm at Jen's house. And I said, Jen, who? She said, Jen McCabe. She's going to drive my car. And I said, okay, stay there. I'll come to there. We'll follow and we'll drop your car off. We'll just take my car and go look for him. And I drove to Jen's and I pulled in the driveway behind them. I was still on speakerphone. Jen is driving. Karen's in the passenger seat and we drove. I said, do you remember, did you look through the house? Could he be passed out somewhere in the house? She said, I don't know. I didn't look. So I said, let's do that. Let's get in the cars. We're not taking 2 cars. It's a blizzard. We're going to go back to Meadows and we're going to go look in the house first. He could be passed out behind the couch or on the floor, or who knows. So we went to the house.
Yeah, I'm sorry, before you get into that, just as far as directionality and where you're going at this initial stage, you're sort of directing what's going to happen and where you're going to go, correct?
Correct.
Now, you had mentioned that the defendant said she was at Jen's house. You asked Jen who, and she said Jennifer McCabe, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
With regards to Ms. McCabe, did you know her, or how did you know her prior to this morning of January 29th?
I had met her once when John took her and I to Reebok because he got a 50% discount. So we would go periodically and get the kids' shoes. So John and myself went to Reebok, got shoes, and then we went to the Hillside for lunch. That was it. I wasn't friends with her.
Is that someone that
Then why is it that you said you told 911 or no, you were calling around looking for accidents and you said my friend's boyfriend? If she wasn't, you weren't friends.
you had programmed in your phone as a contact? Did you have her information prior to January 29th?
No.
And when you went to Ms. McCabe's house that morning, how was it that you knew where Ms. McCabe's house was at that point?
I've picked up Kaylee there a time or two for John and brought her home if I was heading that way, because Jen's house is on the way to John's.
And so you go to Ms. McCabe's house, and can you describe for the jury sort of what you observe or what you see when you're first coming up to Ms. McCabe?
I pulled in the driveway behind Karen's car, and Karen and Jen are in the car talking. I'm still on Bluetooth so I can hear them. And Karen said that she remembered leaving him at Waterfall. And Jen said, no, I saw you pull up to my sister's house. And then at some point in the conversation, she said, what about my taillight? What about my taillight? And I looked, and there was a piece missing, but it was caked on with snow. You could tell there was a little black hole, but there was snow like caked on it, and it was a blizzard at this point.
Black hole.
Now, just as far as over the course of this early morning when you're making that drive from your house to Ms. McCabe's house, correct?
Yes.
So during that time, can you describe sort of what the lighting conditions were, what the roadway conditions were, what you observed as you were driving over there?
It was not light out yet, and it was really bad driving.
And bad driving in reference to snow, was that correct?
Yes.
So you get to Ms. McCabe's house, and during the drive from your house to Ms. McCabe's house, you're speaking to both Ms. McCabe and Ms. Reed.
Yes.
And with reference, I think you've said a couple times as far as a Bluetooth. So as far as what you're hearing on the other side of the conversation, is it just one person, or are you able to hear sort of everything that's going on in the call?
I could hear everything. It was like a regular phone call in the car.
From where you were, your impression was it was hooked up to the speaker of the car.
Correct.
And when you get to Ms. McCabe's house, or what you were just testifying about as far as
Right in space.
when is it that you're making those observations?
In Jen's driveway.
And so about how far away from the defendant's car are you the first time that you see or your attention is drawn to this taillight?
I was parked right behind them in the driveway.
And can you describe which part of the vehicle you were looking at as far as which taillight that you're observing this damage? From there, as far as Ms. McCabe's driveway, you make these observations. Where is it that you go from there?
Say it again.
So after you're making those observations and you're overhearing that conversation or you're having that conversation over the Bluetooth, where did the three of you go?
We went to Meadows, to John's house.
And how was it that each of you sort of got from Ms. McCabe's house to John's house on Meadows?
Jen drove Karen's car, and I followed behind in my car.
And when you arrived there, where did you go? Where did you park? Like,
I pulled in, I think I pulled in right behind. She pulled her car sort of in front of the garage bays, and I pulled in the driveway behind her.
and when you say she, do you know who was driving?
Jen McCabe, sorry.
Driving and Miss Reed's in the front passenger seat.
Correct.
And you're driving your car behind.
Correct.
And what kind of car did you have?
A Ford Explorer,
Do you recall what color it was?
dark gray.
And as far as Miss Reed, do you recall what kind of vehicle she had at that point?
A Lexus SUV,
Recall what color that was?
black.
Now, with respect to Mr. O'Keefe, do you recall what kind of vehicle John O'Keefe had?
He has a Traverse.
And do you recall what color that was?
It's like a beige green.
Beige green.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could ask to publish what's been marked as exhibit number 2.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be streaming. I'm gonna stream until they break for lunch, and then that's it. I'm not gonna be able to do any more today. Then I have to go to work, but I'll be here all day tomorrow.
Do you recognize what is up on the screen?
That's John's house.
And does that seem like a fair and accurate portrayal of what John's house looked like at around the time of January 29th when we went over that morning?
Much snowier, but yes. Oh, I said it was much more snow, but yes.
Now, not visible in this particular photograph, but the driveway that you're talking about, facing Mr. O'Keefe's house at Meadows Ave, as we are in this picture, whereabouts would the driveway be? To the left or the right or something?
To the right.
Thank you, Mikkel. I hope I do too.
Of course, permission, if I could ask to publish what's been marked as exhibit 91.
Okay.
And again, Ms. Roberts, do you recognize what's up on the screen?
That is John's car.
And what is it that's behind John's car?
Behind a basketball hoop?
No, I'm sorry. That's correct. Not the rear of the vehicle, but sort of in the photograph behind on the other side of the passenger side.
Oh, the garage doors?
And there are 2 garage doors, one on the left, one on the right. Is that correct? You're familiar with this house? We've been over it a number of times when Mr. O'Keefe lived there.
Correct.
And as far as what, if anything, were you familiar with as far as Mr. O'Keefe having regarding sort of security around his house?
Security, he has a Ring camera that was in the driveway and a Ring camera that was at the side door.
And with regard to the garage itself, as far as you've been in there as well?
Yes.
And so what is behind the left door of the garage?
His big old blue convertible.
And on the right side of the garage, what, if anything, is in behind?
Nothing. He's got all organized stuff and kids sporting. I don't know if he parked in there or not.
Now, as far as how Mr. O'Keefe kept his garage, kept his home, was there a particular way in which he kept it? When he lived there, you know?
Neat freak.
I'm sorry, what was that?
He was a neat freak.
Okay.
And as you enter into this garage, what, if any, access would you then have to inside the home?
There's a set of stairs and it brings you right into like the mudroom, which leads into the kitchen.
Now, when you would go over to Mr. O'Keefe's house on this occasion or any other occasion, what, if any, rules or preferences would Mr. O'Keefe have with regard to footwear?
You did not wear footwear in the house. You took your shoes off.
And is that something that applied to people who live there as well as people who are visiting?
Yes.
And how would you describe as that a relatively strict rule?
Yes.
Now, Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could, I'd like to publish a portion of Exhibit 6, Ring video.
Okay.
Gilman, if I could have from the driveway, video number 154. So, Ms. Roberts, do you recognize what's up on the screen?
Yes, that's Karen's car and my car, and John's is in the background.
Now, in front of you on the desk, there should be a laser pointer. It's not. Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So,
There's
pressing
it.
on that button and pointing sort of at the screen, if I could ask you just direct the jury's attention to where you see Ms. Reed's vehicle, where you see your vehicle, and where you see Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle as well.
That is John's car. That is Karen's car. That is my car.
Is this a fair and accurate portrayal of sort of where the cars were and what things looked like when you first arrived at Mr. O'Keefe's house, coming from Ms. McCabe?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if you could. Positive. Now, with reference to any individuals that you observe in this video, again, using the laser pointer, if you could draw the jury's attention to who you observe and where they are.
That is Jen McCabe, and that is Karen Reed, and that's me.
And at some point, you enter in through the garage, is that right?
Correct.
Now, as far as the garage doors were concerned, when you came back that morning, what, if anything, did you notice about the garage?
The right garage door wouldn't close.
So it was open when you arrived?
I don't recall if it was open when we arrived, but when we were leaving, it wouldn't close.
And do you recall, do you have any idea of sort of how that mechanically worked, like how you would open, how you would close the garage door?
Yeah, there's a code on the side.
And at any point in time, whenever you noticed that the garage door was open, were you or any of the people that you were able to close that door?
No.
And so is that the door that you entered into in order to get into the garage, to get into the mud, and take off your shoes and go out?
Correct.
And when you came into the house that morning and you entered into the mud, what, if anything, did you do with your shoes, and what, if anything, did you observe Ms. McCabe and the defendant do with their shoes?
Jen and I both had taken our shoes off in the sort of steps in the garage before we entered into the mudroom. We took our shoes off, and Karen just walked in.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could just play the video.
They just forward ahead to the part. I mean, this is so annoying. Did we stay up there for that?
Now, Ms. Roberts, with reference to the Ring video security system that Mr. O'Keefe had at his home, if you know who had access to that?
I do not.
You obviously, do you know whether or not Mr. O'Keefe had access to that?
He did, yes.
Okay, do you know how or what device he used in order to access it?
I only know he had it on his phone
How do you know he had it on his phone?
because he would check it all the time to see if the kids were home or dropped off or,
That's something you did in your presence?
yes.
Now, with regard to, at some point when you get to the home, beyond the sort of initial observations you made in Ms. McCabe's driveway with regard to the right rear passenger taillight of Ms. Reed's vehicle, what, if any, other observations did you make, or what, if anything else, did you do with reference to that area of the vehicle?
Karen did point it out at one point in the driveway. She said, my taillight, look at my taillight. And I looked at it and I said, you told me you don't remember anything from last night. She said, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? And I said, no, I don't think you hit him. I think you probably hit something, but let's just go in the house and look for him.
And so as far as your recollection is concerned, that sort of interaction that you had or looking at the taillight, when did that happen?
I don't know if it was when, well, it obviously wasn't when we got there. It was what must have been when we were leaving to go out to look for him.
When you what? I'm sorry.
I wasn't sure if it was when we arrived or when we were leaving to go back out and look for him. But now that I've seen the video, it's obviously when we came back out of the house.
Okay.
And who was present for that?
Who was present?
Yes.
Jen McCabe, Karen Reed, and myself.
And as far as where Ms. McCabe parked that vehicle, at any point in time that you were at the house, did that vehicle move at all? And by that vehicle, I mean Ms. Reed's vehicle.
I don't think so.
So where it's parked in that video is essentially where it stayed as far as you know.
I believe so.
Now, with reference to those observations or when you were looking at the rear passenger taillight area of Ms. Reed's vehicle, how close to the vehicle were you when you were making those observations?
Right in front of it, there was one piece, like a rectangle encapsulated, like whatever was broken. I remember there was one piece of metal sort of sticking out. So if it was an encasement for a light of some sort, I remember looking at it and the piece was sort of sticking out and I thought someone's going to catch their sleeve on that or something.
And
So how does being hit by or backing into a human body do that?
now from there, when you arrive at the house, you go into the house, you take off your shoes, what happened?
I started looking, Jen started looking, Karen, her and Jen went upstairs. I started looking downstairs. I started looking on the other side of the couches to see if maybe he passed out somewhere. And then I went upstairs and Karen was standing in John's room. The bed was made. She was just standing there. Jen had gone in to talk to Kaylee. And then I said, all right, let's go.
Now,
He's not in the house. He's not in the house.
As far as your knowledge of Mr. O'Keefe, him not coming home when any of the children were home, was that something that was normal?
Him not coming home if the children were home?
Correct.
Yeah, he would not do that.
And obviously you knew Kaylee was there, but what, if anything, did you know as to where Patrick was at that
He was at a friend's house.
And was that something that you knew independent of this morning or what had transpired up to that point?
Say that again?
How did you find out that Patrick was at a friend's house? Even though
Karen said, I said, where's Patrick?
Oops, shit. Damn it, sorry. That was me. Trying to hurry up here. All right. Oh, wait, shit.
is that consistent with
Rewind it a little bit.
it's not? Oh, thank you very much. Reference to the Ring video security system that Mr. O'Keefe had at his home. If you know who had access to that?
I do not.
You obviously, do you know whether or not Mr. O'Keefe had access to that?
He did, yes.
Okay, do you know how or what device he used in order to access it?
I only know he had it on his phone
How do you know he had it on his phone?
because he would check it all the time to see if the kids were home or dropped off or,
That's something he did in your presence?
yes.
Now, with regard to, at some point when you get to the home, beyond the sort of initial observations you made in Mr. Cape's driveway with regard to the right rear path, did you make or what?
One point in the driveway, she said, my taillight, look at my taillight. Pointed out at one point,
Anything else did you do with reference to that?
Sorry.
Karen did point it out at one point in the driveway. She said, my taillight, look at my taillight. And I looked at it and I said, you told me you don't remember anything from last night. She said, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? And I said, no, I don't think you hit him. I think you probably hit something, but let's just go in the house and look for him.
And so as far as your recollection is concerned, that sort of interaction that you had of looking at the taillight, when did that happen?
I don't know if it was when, well, it obviously wasn't when we got there. It was what must have been when we were leaving to go out to look for him.
When you what? I'm sorry.
I wasn't sure if it was when back out of the, who was present.
Yes. Park that vehicle at any point in time that you
I don't think so.
So where it's parked in that video is essentially where it stayed as far as you know.
I believe so.
Now, with reference to those observations or when you were looking at the rear passenger taillight area of Ms. Reed's vehicle, how close to the vehicle were you when you were making those observations?
Right in front of it. There was one piece
There it is.
broken. It was an encased. Thought
When you arrive at the house, you go into the house, you take off your shoes. What happened?
I started looking. Jen started looking. Karen, her and Jen went upstairs. I started looking downstairs. I started looking on the other side of the couches to see if maybe he passed out somewhere. And then I went upstairs and Karen was standing in John's room. The bed was made. She was just standing there. And Jen had gone in to talk to Kaylee. And then I said, all right, let's go.
Now,
He's not in the house. He's not in the house.
As far as your knowledge of Mr. O'Keefe, him not coming home when any of the children were home, was that something that was normal?
Him not coming home if the children were home?
Correct.
Yeah, he would not do that.
And obviously you knew Kaylee was there, but what, if anything, did you know as to where Patrick was at that time?
He was at a friend's house.
And was that something that you knew independent of this morning or what had transpired up to that point?
Say that again?
How did you find out that Patrick was at a friend's house? You know?
Karen said, I said, where's Patrick? She said he's at his friend's.
So you were in the downstairs area of the home, is that correct?
Yes.
And looking through the rooms, you didn't find Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
No,
Now, at any point in time, did you go upstairs?
I did.
And when you went upstairs, where in the upstairs did you go?
At the top of the stairs is John's bedroom. So I looked in there. I looked in the bathroom. I looked in the closet. I looked in Patrick's room. I looked in the other two bedrooms and Kaylee was in her room. So Jen was in there, but I was looking through the house.
And as far as Mr. O'Keefe's bedroom, when you looked in there, what, if anything, did you observe as far as the condition of the bed?
The bed was made.
You mentioned you looked in a variety of different rooms on the second floor. You said sort of two other rooms. What, if anything, were those other rooms used for, if you know?
I think one of them was a computer room. It was the room that faced the front of the house, and the back room had a bed in it that Mrs. O'Keefe would stay in when she would stay over.
And again, just to be clear, when you say Mrs. O'Keefe, you mean John?
No, yeah.
John's mother, sorry.
And as far as the computer room, who, if anyone, had access to that, if you know?
Had access to the computer room.
Yes. What was it used for?
Oh, there was a desk with a computer or laptop.
Did you know,
Good thing he cleared that up.
whether it was John's, whether it was defendants, whether it was kids.
I don't know if it was the defendants at the time, but John's laptop used to be in that room.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, would ask if I could publish just a couple more photos on the screen for Ms. Roberts.
Okay.
Ms. Gilman, if I could start with Exhibit 92. Ms. Roberts, directing your attention up to the screen, do you recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
That's Karen Reed's Lexus.
And specifically, if you could, using the laser pointer in front of you, direct the jury's attention to where you observed damage that way.
That's where the metal piece I was describing was.
As far as what's depicted in this photograph up on the screen, is that consistent with what you observed in Mr. O'Keefe's driveway and Mr. McCabe's driveway when you saw it that morning?
Well, caked in snow, but yes.
Well, absent the snow, yes.
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have the next exhibit, number 93. Again, Ms. Roberts, do you recognize what's depicted in this photograph?
Yes.
Essentially a closer up image of the same area, correct?
Yes.
And what's depicted in this closer up image, is that also consistent with what you observed in Mr. McCabe's driveway and Mr. O'Keefe's driveway that morning?
Yes.
Now, Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would ask again if I could publish a portion of what's marked as Exhibit 41.
Okay.
Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to fast forward to about 2 hours, 9 minutes, and 30 seconds.
Can I just say, I'm going to interrupt. I don't care. I do not get the allure of these gaming chairs. They're not really comfortable. They're too big and bulky. These things keep swiveling on me whenever I use them for any kind of support. They just give away and move to the other side. It feels like it's going to break apart all the time. These arm things get caught on everything, and you think gamers are probably going to have some wires hanging around, caught all the time. I don't understand these fucking chairs. I don't. I'm done. Thank you.
Ms. Roberts, direct your attention up to the screen. You recognize what's on the pause portion of the screen from this video.
That's John's house.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could press play again. Ms. Gilman, if you could pause. And again, Ms. Roberts, direct your attention up to the screen. You recognize what's sort of in front of the camera in this particular portion of the video.
That's Karen's car and John's car.
And where you observe Karen's car and John's car, again, if you could just using the laser pointer direct the jury's attention where you observe each of those in this still frame here.
That's Karen's car. That's John's car.
And are those essentially the same positions that you were talking about that the jury saw earlier in the ring video from Mr. O'Keefe's house?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes. Do you want this up on the screen or down?
Up for now.
Okay.
But just for a moment. Ms. Roberts, I'm going to show you just 2 photographs. Ask you to just look at those when I'm finished.
Okay.
And do you recognize those? Or do you recognize what's depicted in them?
Do I recognize what?
What's depicted in each of those photographs?
Karen's car.
And may I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'll seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibits.
Okay, is there any objection? No objection. All right, thank you.
Must I like? Is this some kind of joke? It's Karen's car.
Your Honor, while those are being marked, may we approach?
Hold on. Sidebar.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Now what's going on? Oh boy, awesome. I'm done with that part. Let me go here to chat here for a minute. I think they did it to it at the bar. So everybody just don't believe me. Stories are not adding up. The women before her his and something different. Can't wait for cross. Yeah, exactly. Manitoba. Huh. All right, I'm gonna be using the drill, so I'm gonna mute in between, so you guys aren't stuck listening to it because it can be a little loud. Like, why isn't it working? I had it charging this whole time. Why isn't it working? No, I was charging the base. I wasn't charging the drill itself. I didn't know you could charge the drill itself. Well, why wasn't it charging from the base? I use it like that? Oh, I can. Okay. Okay, cool. I just need a longer cord. Where's my really long one? It's in my purse, isn't it? It is. It was. It's not now. Wait, I think I can use this one, huh? Yeah,
Your Honor, with course permission, I would ask to publish first what's been marked as Exhibit 101.
Okay.
And Ms. Roberts, what's up on the screen now is Exhibit 101. You indicated that's Ms. Reed's vehicle in the same position where Mr. Cave left the car from the property, correct?
Yes.
This is appear to be a still shot from the same video that you just saw in the prior.
Yes.
Ms. Dillon, if I could have Exhibit 102 now. And Ms. Roberts, what's up on the screen? That's the second photograph that I showed you just a moment ago.
Yes.
That's essentially a closer up or zoomed in image of what's in the same still image that you saw in the prior, correct?
Yes.
And again, if you could, using the laser pointer, just direct your attention to the damage that you observed on the right rear passenger taillight of Ms. Reed's vehicle that morning. Okay. Come on, you can take it. Now you go look through the home, you don't find Mr. O'Keefe, and what happens?
Then I said, let's go look for him. If he might be walking home, or if you thought he got hit by a plow, let's just, and Jen and Karen wanted to go back to 34 Fairview where they were at. Jen said she saw her pull up to 34 Fairview the night before. So Karen really wanted to go back there. I was the one that said, no, let's drop a car off, go to Meadows and look through the house, and then we'll start looking if he's not in the house. So that's what we did. We got in the car and we were going to head back to Jen's sister's house.
And so this conversation, as far as the defendant, as you're testifying, really wanting to go to Fairview, when did that occur in relation to when you got to Mr. O'Keefe's?
On the way from Jen McCabe's house to John's house in the car.
So this is over the Bluetooth as you're driving?
Yes, Karen said I left him at Waterfall, and Jen said, no, I saw you pull up in front of my sister's.
And so after coming out of Mr. O'Keefe's house, do you exit the same way that you entered?
Yes.
Come out the garage door, get into your car?
Yes.
Wait.
If you could describe to the jury sort of where was everybody seated in your car?
So if in the conversation, right up into the conversation they had in the car, Karen is under the belief that she dropped him off at Waterfall, why would then, before they left to go to 34 Fairview, why is Robert here saying that it was Karen who wanted to go to Fairview? If up until after that moment in the car that she's listening to over Bluetooth, that's when Karen is told, no, you pulled up to my sister's house. You didn't leave him at the Waterfall. You know what I mean? Do you see what I'm saying here? Like it's not adding up.
I was driving, Karen was in the back seat, and Jen was in the passenger seat.
Wait, what?
And as
What's
far
with the
as,
Bluetooth then?
Ms. McCabe's sister's house, at the time, did you know where that was or who her sister was?
I'm like so
or
confused.
anything like that?
I didn't even know she had a sister.
And you know about how long a drive or how far a drive or what the route was that you took going from Meadows to her sister's house?
I think we went main roads because we were looking to see, I mean, I don't know what we were looking for, but we were looking for him. I don't know if we thought he was walking home or if he got hit by a plow. So we went main roads. We pulled out, I think we went Bolivar Street, and then Jen was giving directions because I didn't know where we were going.
And to be clear, Bolivar Street, you're talking about, that's Bolivar.
Yes,
And so then Ms. McCabe is then giving you directions as you're driving, correct?
correct.
Now, as you're driving, again, as far as what, if anything, did you see as far as plows or how were the roads treated at that time? What, if anything, did you observe in reference to that?
It was bad driving. There were plows out, but it was really bad driving.
And the visibility as you were driving from Mr. O'Keefe's house to Ms. McCabe's sister's house, how would you describe the visibility?
It was very poor. It was in the middle of a blizzard.
Now, when you get to the street, at some point you're directed by Ms. McCabe to Fairview Road, correct?
Correct.
And when you get to Fairview Road, do you recall whether or not you took a left or a right, or how did you come onto Fairview Road?
Off of Chapman Street, I took a right onto Fairview.
You took a right from Chapman onto Fairview.
Correct.
And as you're coming down Fairview Road, what, if anything, did you note or observe as far as the sort of elevation of the roadway?
You go downhill.
You go down a hill?
Yes.
This particular area of Canton, obviously you've lived in Canton for several years. Are you somewhat familiar with this area of Canton?
Yeah.
And how is it that you were familiar with the area of Canton prior to the estate if you've never been to Ms. McCabe's sister's house?
The commuter rail is right near there that I would take to work.
Are there any schools in that area as well?
Yes, the John F. Kennedy School.
And you mentioned that your son played baseball, correct?
Yes, and
Ball field.
my son and John's nephew also went to the home daycare across the street from the JFK.
Now, Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would ask to just publish a brief portion of what's been marked as Exhibit 12.
Okay.
Gentlemen, what I'm going to ask is if you could push this video forward to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm sorry, if you could play it from there. I could ask him to stop right there. Ms. Roberts, from what you've seen on the video, as far as what's depicted in this video, is that a fair and accurate portrayal, consistent with what you observed that morning as you were driving around, going from Mr. O'Keefe's house to Ms. McCabe's sister's house?
Yes.
And the turn that this vehicle is taking at this point in the video, about 2 minutes and 40 seconds in, you recognize what street that vehicle is turning onto?
I believe it's Fairview.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could. Ms. Roberts, as you're driving from Mr. O'Keefe's house to this address on Fairview Road that you've never been to before, what's going on inside the car?
Karen was frantic. She wouldn't put her seatbelt on. And I was getting nervous because we're driving in a blizzard. She kept leaning in between the two seats. I think at some point she was texting in the back seat and then she'd be leaning. She was just frantic the whole morning.
And as far as her screaming, do you recall anything specifically that she was screaming or what, if any, sort of conversation was going on in the car as you were driving?
There was some conversation about a woman I didn't know that was Bella's mom. And she said, Bella's mom never liked me. I think Bella lived near Jen's sister, maybe. I don't know. Some conversation about Bella's mom, and Karen said she didn't like me.
And do you recall where you were in your travels when that topic of conversation came up?
No, I don't recall.
Now, in reference to following that, what, if anything, did you say in regards to any other sort of women?
Any other what?
Following that conversation in regard to Bella's mom, who you didn't know, what, if anything, did you say or introduce into the conversation?
Fairview Road runs along Spring Street, I think it is, Spring Lane. So Spring Lane and Fairview are both off at Chapman Street, and there was a woman he dated that lived on Spring Lane. So when
No one had any idea where Fairview was up until this point. So glad she filled that in finally.
Jen was telling me where her sister's house was, I said, I don't know where Fairview is. And she said, it's near Spring Lane. And I said, oh, where the dance instructor lived. John had once dated a dance instructor. And then Karen said, do you think he could have gone there? Do you think that's where he could have been? No, I was just using it as a reference point. She said it's near Spring Lane. And I knew that the dance instructor lived on Spring Lane.
And just to be clear, when you say the dance instructor, this would be for his niece, Kaylee?
Correct.
And,
She's saying, I don't know. I get this impression. I know I'm not saying that she did anything wrong or anything, of course not. But I'm getting this impression though from this chick that she kind of had a lot of care for John O'Keefe, like a lot of care for John O'Keefe. Just my opinion.
Keith and the dance instructor I dated at some point in the past, correct?
Yes.
How long ago was that?
Oh, it was when Kaylee was little. She was probably like 5.
So almost 10 years before this date that you're driving along. Now, as you're driving along and driving down Fairview, what is it that you're doing? What, if anything, do you observe Mr. McCabe doing? And then what, if anything, do you observe the defendant?
Well, we were looking for John walking or wherever he may be. So I'm driving and looking on both
Wait a
sides. And
second.
I think Jen was looking on both sides.
So was that saying that John dated this dance instructor like when Kaylee was really young, like around 5 or so? So that was some time ago, right? And this chick here, who's never even met Karen before, right? Says that she knows, oh yeah, oh, you live over by, John's ex-girlfriend who he dated years ago briefly, some dance instructor. I don't know, man. Why are you thinking, why is this shit even on your mind? Like, why?
And Karen she would be in the back seat, then she'd be in between us, then she'd be in the back seat, and then in between us.
And as you came down the hill on Fairview, what, if anything, what happened then?
Jen said, my sister's house is right up here. And all of a sudden, Karen said, there he is, there he is. Let me the F out of this car. And she started kicking the door.
And how was she kicking the door?
With her feet. Well, how was she kicking the door?
How hard was she kicking?
Oh, pretty hard. I mean, she wanted to get out of the car, but it was locked because once you start driving, the back doors lock. So I looked over and I didn't see anything. And I looked at Jen and I said, she's crazy. And I unlocked the door and I sat back and watched. And she ran over to a mound of snow.
And so as the time you're driving down the road, have you seen anything, as you're driving down, sort of looking at the side of the road, have you seen anything on your side of the vehicle?
No.
And when you say she gets out of the vehicle, is it your side or passenger side where Ms. McCabe is that?
The driver's side.
So she gets out of the driver's side of the vehicle on the back passenger, correct?
Correct.
And how quickly does she go sort of from your car to where she ends up?
She ran over to the mound.
And at that point in time, even when she runs over, could you see what she was running over to?
At some point, I realized it was the shape of a body.
And when was that you realized? When in this sort of sequence were you able to realize that?
That was in seconds. Once she ran over to his body, I said, "Oh my God." And she lifted up his shirt and started to lay on him.
And when you stopped to let her out, where were you in relation to that mound of snow or what you learned?
I think my car was like in the middle of the road. I just stopped.
And in relation to where the mound of snow was, had you driven past it at that point? So where was it?
Yes.
So it was located behind your vehicle?
Yeah.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could, I would ask just play on that till about 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Pause it right there. Okay. What's depicted in the screen in front of this camera angle? Do you recognize what that is?
That's my car.
Is that essentially where you parked your car when Miss Reed started kicking the doors and got out and ran over?
Yes.
Could just press play for a moment. Pause it. Now, from this video, do you see where in relation to your vehicle, Mr. O'Keefe, where you found this girl?
With the pointer.
Ms. Gilman, if you could, again, just play for about 6.5.
Do you have a problem? You can run. Huh?
Individuals on the screen again, could just use the laser pointer and direct your attention to those are.
That is Jen McCabe. That's Karen Reed. That's me.
Roberts, in relation to what you just saw in the video, as far as at some point, the rear sort of tailgate or hatchback on your SUV, that was in the up position, is that correct?
Yes.
And
I'm going to further, elaborate on what I was saying before. She's crying. She's obviously visibly upset over the loss of her friend, which understandably so. I'm not saying anything about that. But does that look like someone that would sit there and describe the person which they're crying over as my friend's boyfriend? No, it would be my friend's girlfriend. I don't buy that.
do you recall why that was?
Because I was having Jen get the baby blankets to wrap around him out of my car.
And is that something that you just sort of have in the back of your car at all times?
Yeah.
Now, at any point in time in that sequence, did you call anybody or have any sort of phone calls that you made that went to voicemail at that time?
Did I?
Yes.
I don't know.
And so nothing that you recall, is that correct?
Correct.
And did you observe Ms. McCabe make any phone calls that just sort of went to voicemail and she left her phone in your car?
Objection. Sustained.
Let me take you back, sort of when you're pulling. So as far as the conditions when you pull up and the defendant's banging on the door and gets out and runs over to Mr. O'Keefe. What's depicted in that video, obviously without your vehicle being in the middle of the roadway, is that fair and accurate portrayal of what the road looked like and sort of what you saw upon your arrival?
Yes.
So after the defendant gets out of the vehicle, what did you do? Where did you go?
When I realized it was him or someone, I ran over and I dug his head out of the snow.
And you recall, you recognized the person in the snow was Mr. O'Keefe.
Once I dug his head out, yes.
And you recall how his body was positioned as far as how was he on his stomach, on his back, on his side?
He was on his back.
And so you brushed some snow away from his head, is that correct?
Off his face.
And when you were brushing the snow off his face, what, if anything, did you observe about his face or the condition of him?
He had blood coming out of his nose and his mouth. And his right eye it looked like a golf ball. His left eye was fine. The right eye looked like a golf ball.
Now, you mentioned that you wiped some snow from around his head. What, if anything else, did you observe on the rest of his body?
He was bleeding in the back of the head. So when I was wrapping I don't know why I was wrapping blankets around his head, but I didn't know. He had a cut on the back of his head.
Do you recall which side of his head that cut was on?
I don't. It just was blood on the blanket that was under his head.
Now, as far as the rest of his body, did that have snow on it as well?
Say it again, I'm sorry?
The rest of his body, separate from his head area, what, if any, snow did you observe on the rest of his body?
He was completely covered.
And you know about how much snow was covering the rest of his body?
I would say like 4 inches, maybe 3. I don't really remember exactly how many, but he was covered.
And so with reference to Mr. O'Keefe, and when you arrived there, 3 of you being you, the defendant, and Ms. McCabe, what is it that you were doing when you first sort of come over to Mr. O'Keefe?
Well, Karen was laying on top of him and I told her to get off him because I was going to do CPR. And I said, Jen, you need to call 911. And I started CPR on his chest compressions. And then Karen was giving him mouth to mouth.
And as far as CPR,
That's not what Jen says.
any training in prior to this?
Jen said that they took one look at each other, Jen and this chick here, and Jen said, I'm going to call 911 or something like that. Like it was her idea. And no,
Yes.
Okay.
And can you jury a little bit about that as far as what, if any, training did you have as far as CPR was concerned?
I get CPR certified every 2 years through the American Red Cross at work.
So you start doing chest compressions, is that right?
Correct.
And you direct Ms. McCabe to call 911?
Yes.
And what was the defendant doing at that?
She was doing mouth to mouth and she was frantic again, running around. And
As she was running around, what, if anything else, was she doing or saying while she was running around?
did I hit him? Did I hit him? Is he dead? Is he dead?
Is that something that she said once or more than once?
More than once.
And similar to sort of the tonality or the volume of the voice that you were describing before, was that consistent when you're there sort of in front of the house?
Yes.
Now, in relation to where you were with Mr. O'Keefe, obviously you've never been in this house before, is that right?
Correct.
What, if anything, did you observe as far as overhead lights or street lights or anything like that around that area where you found this building?
There was a fire hydrant and there was some weird like electrical box thing sticking out of the ground.
But you don't recall any sort of like overhead lights or anything like that?
I don't recall.
Now,
I'm such a
this
squad.
process of you sort of doing compressions,
Just feel the rubbing alcohol
you're just
everywhere.
doing mouth to mouth and then running around, is the mouth to mouth that she's doing, is that sort of consistent or is it intermittent between, when is the running around in relation to the mouth to mouth?
I don't remember which was first, or I was concentrating on doing chest compressions.
And so while you're doing the chest compressions, at some point do first responders start to arrive?
Correct.
And about how long was it from the time that you sort of get out of the vehicle, go over, realize it's Mr. O'Keefe, et cetera, and to when the first responders arrive?
I don't know. Wasn't long, maybe under 10 minutes.
During that time, or during any amount of time that you were there, did you see anybody from any of the houses on the street come out of the house, or any neighbors come out or anything like that?
No.
Not even a big red solo cups?
Once, if you recall, do you recall whether it was police or fire or ambulance or who showed up first?
I don't know. I think the police showed up first, or the EMTs. I just know the EMTs came over and said, we'll take it from here. I wasn't paying attention to what else was going on.
So you're sort of focused on the chest compressions, and at some point, some paramedic comes over and tells you they've got this.
Yes.
And so after that, where did you?
After that, where did I go? I stayed in the area. I think I went back over to the car.
And as paramedics are working on John, you're over by your vehicle, correct?
I think so.
And so where was, what were you doing, and where was Ms. McCabe, and where was the defendant at that?
Karen was running around the body while the EMTs were trying to work on him. She was just frantic.
And so you're over by the car, and Ms. Reed is running around over where Mr. O'Keefe is.
Yes.
Where was Ms. McCabe?
I don't know. She was somewhere around the car.
So closer to you than to where Mr. O'Keefe was?
I don't know.
Now, where Mr. O'Keefe was, if you know, where was he in relation to the roadway or the paved sort of pathway of Fairview Road?
I don't know, because you couldn't tell which was the road and which was the grass. Like, you couldn't tell where the road began and ended. So I don't know.
Now, you described the defendant sort of running around Mr. O'Keefe frantically. What, if anything, was she saying at that point?
Is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead?
And that sort of phraseology, or the way she put that, was that consistent throughout? Is that how she stated it?
Yes.
And again, in that same sort of loud volume voice at the time?
Yes.
Now, at some point, Mr. O'Keefe is taken from where he is by the paramedics to an ambulance, correct?
Yes.
And as he's being taken off the ground, what, if anything, did you observe in that area?
His phone was under him, and it was grass.
Now, as far as the grass that you observed, how was that in relation to sort of the rest of the area where Mr. O'Keefe was?
Everything else had snow.
So everything else is covered in snow, and when he's lifted off the ground underneath his body, is that where the grass is?
Yes.
And his phone was where in relation to his body?
In the grass?
Lifted up, what part of his body had been opened?
Like maybe his shoulder, maybe it was like his back. So when they lifted him up, it was under where like his, whatever the right side of his back.
And what I'm asking is basically sort of up towards the shoulder blade or down towards his lower back?
In the middle.
And when you saw the phone on the grass, what, if anything, did you do with Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
I picked it up. I put it in my pocket. And at some point, one of the first responders asked if I had it. I handed it over.
Do you recall who that first responder was?
No.
Do you recall even
What?
Police officer, or firefighter, or paramedic?
No.
She put it in her pocket.
As Mr. O'Keefe is being taken from where he was located when you found him to the ambulance, what happens then? What goes on from that?
At some point, Officer Good told Karen to calm down because she was frantic. And at some point, Jen and Karen were in the back of a police cruiser to warm up. I was standing outside watching the ambulance because I could see in through the ambulance that they were moving things and working on them.
And so what, if any, conversation did you have with the defendant or Ms. McCabe in reference to what you were seeing through the back of the ambulance?
I said, they're working on him. They're working on him. And at one point, Karen grabbed the front of my jacket and screamed in my face and said, are they working on him? Is he alive? And I said, they're working on him. They're working on him. They wouldn't be working on him if he was dead. And then she had us hold hands and pray.
Right.
And then at
Yeah,
some
we're
point,
still streaming, almost
she
done.
had blood on her hands and she
Yes, I know.
she told us she had her period. So I think she was just in a state of shock, maybe.
And what, if anything, did either you or Ms. McCabe say to her? When
Strange place to get your period from, but okay.
We said, no, that's not your blood. That's John's.
And what happened then?
Then the ambulance drove away.
And if you know about how long was it from the time that
There's a soundboard there?
paramedic to sort of step away from Mr. O'Keefe, they had this, from that point to when the ambulance drove away?
I don't know. I don't think it was long. I watched them work on whatever they were doing in the back of the ambulance, and they got in the ambulance and drove away.
And after the ambulance left, where did the three of you go, or where did you go? Where did Miss Reed go? Where did Miss?
Karen, I had her in my car. Jen was going up to the door to her sister's house, and I said to the police, I had been on the phone now. I had called Mrs. O'Keefe. I had called John's mother. I had called John's father. At some point, Karen was on the phone with John's sister-in-law, Erin, telling him John's dead. So I grabbed the phone from her. I said, he's not dead. He's in the back of an ambulance. He's been in an accident. And she said that Paul was going to go, John's brother, to the hospital that they were bringing John to. So I spoke to I called Mr. O'Keefe. He didn't answer.
Next question. That'll stand. But next question.
You call Mr. O'Keefe and Mrs. O'Keefe John's parents?
Correct.
Some,
Correct.
and do you know why it was that Miss McCabe was going into the house on Fairview?
Do you know why?
To wake her sister, I think.
And
Okay, so
conversation.
I apologize, but I do have to get ready for work. I have to be there in less than an hour, and finally got my nails done. So I have to get dressed and just get ready. So I'm going to have to end this now, but I will not be back to stream this afternoon, but I will be here tomorrow to stream this and pick up where today leaves off. So thanks for being here, everyone. And I will see you guys tomorrow morning. So, bye. I think where I can find it. There we go. Bye.